Hey everyone, what is up, and welcome back for episode 56 of Higurashi When They Cry. Today will be the first episode of the 7th chapter. Um, yeah, it's been a while again. For once, I was actually busy. It wasn't just me vanishing because I didn't feel like recording, right? It was kind of that for like a few weeks, and then I suddenly got busy right as I was about to come back. So, if anyone wants details, I mean, I can explain, but I don't figure it matters that much. Um, we're back. Um, so last episode was the conclusion, not conclusion, but the like aftermath of chapter 6. We reviewed some of the bad ends, which were interesting but not super plot relevant. And then we kind of discussed some theories, and I didn't really say anything new in that section. I rewatched it. It was a whole lot of repeating what the end of chapter 6 kind of revealed in the tips. Chapter 6 itself was great, but that wasn't last episode, so I don't feel the need to recap it here. A lot of really interesting stuff. There are a few things I want to briefly talk about before we start the chapter. And these are just kind of some, I guess, maybe minor theories or possibly revisions. First of all, something I really noticed that I don't know if I pointed this out before. I feel like I probably have, but I don't know. It seems like I know I pointed this out at some point, but I needed to confirm it. And okay, I didn't fully confirm it, but I looked into it a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it's true. I'm pretty sure the only timeline the disaster doesn't happen in, or that we know it didn't happen in, is chapter 2, which is conveniently the only chapter in which Rika is dead before the disaster could occur, which somehow makes me think that Rika dying is part of what causes the disaster. Rika dying in a certain way, rather. Also, this is something kind of explicitly spelled out that I somehow completely glossed over, but Takano writes out a pretty good idea of what happens in chapter 6, right? Or what she wants everyone to believe, and then manipulates Rena into spreading all of that information. And I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, Akasaka, that is, literally was like, this is the demon's script, right? Like, this is their script, right? This is, like, they wanted things to play out this way. It's not a coincidence that things went this similarly. It doesn't necessarily mean he believes in things like UFOs. He might. But he thinks it's interesting that that's how it's clearly written. And so thinking about it, I mean, I agree. It's definitely intentional. Like, it was intentionally written almost as a script. And I think it's kind of written to throw people off of the truth. Like, there might be some truth to what is said. If I had to pick something, I still think microbial parasites might make sense. I'm a little less sure now than I was in the past. But I could still see that being true. But then some of the other aspects, like the whole alien invasion thing, don't necessarily have to be true, right? And that could, like, maybe mixing in a potential truth with a lie could really throw things off, right? If that makes sense. Notably, I don't think the aliens are, like, completely impossible. I'm not counting on them existing. This story, like, Higu clearly has supernatural elements. So I'm not gonna discount something like that. But I don't know. You almost gotta wonder if the aliens are just Rika and the other person that's there with Rika. It doesn't really explain the whole swamp thing by itself if it's just those two, unless they literally have a UFO in there. When I say the swamp thing, I mean them sealing it with concrete, because that is one of the questions, right, that Akasaka, like, raises, is he's like, there were a lot of suspicious activities regarding the investigation, right? Like, the blood tests, which is why I'm like, maybe parasites do make sense. The sealing of the swamp with concrete, why would they do that, right? Like, maybe it was to, like, maybe it was all some crazy diversionary tactic, right? Like, both of those, like, like, Takano wanted this to be believed, like, that there was a UFO in the swamp, they had to cover this up. But, like, why would they do it if there wasn't any evidence? I don't know. Interesting questions that I'm not 100% sure on, but So basically, I think the Great Disaster is very obviously someone's end goal. I definitely think that person is Takano. I mean, if you think about it, I've already been highly suspicious of her. But then when you think about the script, who wrote it, right? Like it was Takano again, right? Another thing, obviously pointing towards her. And I've never believed she was actually dead here, and so if she's not actually dead, then it would be pretty like it would like if everyone thinks she's dead, it would explain why Akasaka's not instantly like Takano's the one behind this, right? But like if I don't think she's dead, I can be like Takano is behind this, right? Like you know, he is Akasaka has a little less context than me on Takano specifically, um, you know, and then I said I wrote some of this down so that I could summarize it a little bit. I think Rika's death to Shion and Tu threw that plan off, which might mean that specifically sacrificing Rika in some way is an important part of the plan. Maybe that's what actually causes death, because they mention that it doesn't make sense for it to be a volcanic gas. It would have caused like metallic corrosion that never occurred. It would have killed off all the wildlife, and that didn't happen. So maybe somehow Rika's ritual death, like through some manner or another, it causes everyone in Hinamizawa to die, right? Maybe like if the parasite theory is true, maybe it somehow causes all the parasites to go haywire and just kill their host instantly, right? I don't know. Just it's something similar, just a random example, right? Um, and I think Takano likely uses the scrapbooks and directly manipulates people into doing these curse killings and getting what she wants from them. I mean, we've seen twice now, like her, like three times now, her basically directly do that, right? We've seen it directly with Shion and Rena in chapters 5 and then 6, and then there were heavy implications that she did the same thing with Satoshi in chapter, well, not any chapter, but before the game, um, in what 1982. Um, and she's clearly manipulating people into this, and maybe the end goal is just the great disaster. How do these curse killings contribute to that end goal? I don't know, actually. Maybe you got to think about her motivation as a whole, which I kind of assume is just bringing back that fear of Hinamizawa, and the curse killings did a really good job at that. So, those are kind of, I guess, my final thoughts before starting chapter 7. Just kind of like they're a little different. They're pretty similar to what I already had, but a little different. So I wanted to get them out there before starting the chapter. So let's go ahead and hit start. Whoa, what is that? Okay, that's a fascinating picture. Minagoroshi, The Final Truth. Massacre chapter. Oh, great. We haven't had enough massacres yet. um, the story introduces the unit inside and out using all the actors. This is no longer a story, it's a public autopsy for all to join. As they say, after loving someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. It's the same as stories. The difficulty is quite mild, well suited for those with pride. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what they say. If you love someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. I mean, who hasn't heard that? Right? That's interesting. But the way they describe it, it's no longer a story, a public autopsy for all to join. I definitely think this is where they're going to really start to, like, break things down. I see the background, and it kind of reminds me of the classic kind of almost timey effect of, like, a shattered mirror or window or something, right? That shows kind of different possibilities, right? If that makes sense. And the act of shattering it is like the the normal way time works, kind of shattering. Um, Something I do want to throw out there that I'm kind of confused about. Actually, before that, I was going to say that them saying that this isn't a story, rather it's a public autopsy. I mean, like more in the sense that it's not like it might be hinting that it's not like a normal like this is what really happened in chapter 1. This is what really happened in chapter 3, right? Like stuff like that. Although I think chapter like 6 did a pretty good job of being that counterpart to chapter 1 without directly showing what happened, like in the same way that 5 did it too. Um, and I think it also sort of explains some aspects of 3, but not really. If I had to pick one, it's a lot more related to 3, or 1, rather. So maybe this one explains 3 a little more, but I don't think it's going to stick to any one, like, story, like, in one timeline, right? I wouldn't be shocked if we're jumping around timelines a little bit. I don't know. And kind of related to that is the fact that I look at the picture for the icon of the game, and you guys obviously can't see this. When I booted the game, it was Satoko, which, whatever, sure. But for some reason, when I look down at the bottom of my screen, that is not Satoko. I don't know who that is. They kind of have the purplish hair, kind of like Rika, but it doesn't look like Rika. I kind of think it might be the figure that's related to Rika, that Rika's been talking to in some of these tips, who seems to also be a somewhat supernatural entity, right? I don't know. That makes sense to me. So let's go ahead and let's just start the chapter. I've got some ideas on what it might be, but the easiest way to really figure it out is to just hit play. Like it said, it seems like this is going to be where they really just start to give us some answers, dissect the mysteries of the plot. So, I mean, I think I've basically done all the theorizing that I'm going to do at this point. I think it seems like this is maybe, like, if you are going to do more theorizing, this is the last place to do it. So there's a small part of me that, like, wants to stop the video here and just go back to theorizing, but I think we're done with that. I could spend more time theorizing, and I might enjoy it a little bit, but I think mostly at this point, like, it's just time, right? Like, it's just time. Let's go. Alright, what do we got here early on? Oh, is there not an early quote? There's normally one. What are you doing? I don't see you playing by yourself that often. All you could do before was to nod to my questions. Since when do you have your own will? I'm glad. I only have a sister or a brother. Whichever you are. I used to be an existence of nothingness, just like you. What the fuck is happening? But one day, I began to have my own identity, my own thoughts, and eventually my own body. So it's not a surprise to see you in possession of your own will. Welcome to this vast yet tiny world, my sister. You might be my brother, but let me call you my sister until I know for sure. This is an endless, eternal, and infinite world. If that doesn't mean it's boundlessly vast, I suppose you could describe it like a ring with a small diameter. While the ring is an eternal, endlessly looping world, that doesn't mean it contains infinite space. Yes, in short, this world is eternally sealed. The future is supposed to be an infinite weave of countless choices. Yet for whatever reason, our world always ends in death. If I were to compare it to something, perhaps a maze of fate would be appropriate. Looping through the same moments forever, steadily grows harder and more dejecting, eventually producing something like me. And as that draws further on, even one like you is born, and eventually this world may be filled with your sisters too. After that, we'll build a colony inside of it, and once we lose our interest in this maze, Rika Furude will disappear from this world. I was gonna say, I figure this is Rika. It looks like you still cling to this narrow world, Rika, though I lost interest long ago. Which is why I'm truly glad you were born for me to talk to. So what are you doing? Are you collecting fragments of memory? Yeah, see, I kind of expected it to be something like this. This is super cool. What the hell? There's only 5 or 6 of them right now. It must still be fun for you, though. There used to be more fragments long ago, but one by one they disappeared into the darkness. Now, these are the only ones that remain clear. Oh, it's not how you're supposed to use it. See? Try and hold it up to the light. All of that is the life of Rika Furude, and its end. That one is... Oh, I remember that one. That's the world when Keiichi was cursed. Those fragments are like books to me, so I titled that one the Onikakushi chapter. Bro. Do you remember what happened in that one? Good. That makes things easier. In Onikakushi, Keiichi Maibara was consumed by the darkness. He couldn't accept the kind words his friends offered him and eventually beat them to death, not knowing of their kindness. We were all killed after that anyway. That had nothing to do with his story, though. Okay, so the tragedy did happen in Chapter 1 is what I'm reading there. That fragment is the Watanagashi chapter. Shion Sonozaki was cursed in that one. She killed many people out of revenge for her boyfriend's disappearance, as he went missing in 1982. Rika worked so hard. She was captured at the end, and she was tortured to death. That's why she chose to commit suicide in the Mayakashi chapter, because things were going to turn out the same way. That fragment over there is called the Tataragaroshi chapter. Satoko's uncle came back and locked her up inside her house. That was the worst world of all. There was nothing Rika was able to do in that world. Whenever Satoko's uncle comes back, Rika usually just gives up on that world. Fortunately, Satoko's uncle doesn't come back that frequently. That one is called the Sumi Horoboshi chapter. Rika was there until just a moment ago. Rene Ryugu was possessed in that world. Possessed. It was pretty exciting to see her take over the whole school. It surprised me to learn that Keiichi Maibara had a memory of the other worlds, just like we do. It was pretty amazing, but then again, most of us have some kind of memory like that. We all have we all have an imaginary world within us, some idea of what would have happened if you did things differently. It's like the strange feeling you get when you do something for the first time, but it feels like you've done it before. Everyone has a memory of an imaginary world in their mind, but the memory's not always that clear. It's not surprising, really. You're special enough to be able to see those fragments of memory. It's probably very difficult for you to understand how special you really are. Okay, this is interesting. This is really interesting, because it feels definitely like they're speaking directly to us as the reader, because previously this was like a Rika-only ability, basically, right? To be able to see all of these fragments, but we've read them all. You were born into a world where it's a natural thing for you to see these fragments. I was originally born in the normal world. I didn't know until recently that I could collect these fragments of memory. You grabbed those fragments just because you could, but I didn't know how to do that for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not interested in hearing my story. Huh? What's wrong? What are you curious about? Oh, you're curious as to why so many incidents occur in the same world? It's very interesting, isn't it? Why do you think that's the case? Let's think about it together. Thinking is the first step towards playing a game. The main character among Rika's group of friends is Keiichi Maibara. In Onikakashi, he was possessed by suspicion and killed Rena Ryugu and Mion Sonozaki. If that was an inevitable event, he would be killing them in every world. In other words, what Keiichi Maibara did in Onikakashi was not inevitable. Right, indeed. The only thing that's inevitable is Keiichi Maibara's role. If Keiichi Maibara was someone with a naturally suspicious heart, he would take the same actions in every world, but that didn't happen. It's true that Keiichi Maibara is both passionate and easily convinced of anything, but it's rare for him to exhibit the kind of rage he displayed in Onikakashi. In other words, even though something might seem inevitable in one world, that may not be the case if you compare it to a different one. Right? If something really is inevitable, it will happen for sure in every life. That's what true inevitability is like. It's very important that you know that. When you compare the different worlds, what's common among all of them is the truth. Understand? But like I said, what seems inevitable in one life could just be a random event in another. The club activities that Mion Sonozaki suggests are a good example. If Mion Sonozaki had a strong inclination towards playing certain games, you'd be playing them in every world. But in reality, you participate in different activities in most of them. That means that the games they play in the club are randomly decided by Mion Sonozaki. Right? We know that now because we've been through many different lives. Those who only live in one world can't see if the event in question is inevitable or random. Those who only live once can't predict what's going on in Mion Sonozaki's mind. But we can. Although the activities are random, Mion Sonozaki calls us together for the club meeting almost every day in every life. I can see that Mion Sonozaki holds a strong will towards having the club meeting. Right? This all makes sense. Mion Sonozaki always wants to play with the other club members, but she doesn't know what to play. See? We can read Mion Sonozaki's mind just by simply examining these fragments. With this alone, we can see part of who Mion Sonozaki really is. Let me talk a bit more about Keiichi Maibara. For those who only live once, the world of the Higurashi chapter is nothing but a story where Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death. For them, there's nothing beyond that fact. We, however, can compare different fragments and find out something they could never see. As a result, we know that the murder of his friends was not inevitable. I told you that just earlier. In fact, while there are about 5 or 6 pieces in front of you, he only kills his friends in one of them. That means we can roughly conclude that the possibility Keiichi Maibara triggers the tragedy is less than 20%, and is almost a fluke. This means that amongst the countless worlds, Keiichi Maibara causing the tragedy is an unimportant factor. Now, can you find the common thread to be drawn from here? Ah, you found it already? No wonder you were born in this world. You're quick to learn the knack for playing with building blocks. I didn't figure that out for a while. I was born in the normal world, so I can only see things from a single world's perspective. I was too obsessed with the fact that Keiichi Maibara caused the tragedy, so I had trouble finding it. Right. That's exactly right. You see it? The Onikakushi, Watanagashi, Ayakashi, and Sumihoroboshi chapters all have something in common. I mean, the first thing I think of is the death of, why can I not remember the bro's name? The photographer. Someone in the group becomes violent because of dark and paranoid thoughts. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's not something literally that happens the exact same way in every event, just something, like, the fact that something like that always happens. In each world, either Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, or Renaryugu become violent as their delusions grow stronger. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Renaryugu are all my close friends. They were all born and raised differently. The only common factor is that they all live in Hinamizawa. I just said it not too long ago, though. When we peer through these fragments of multiple worlds, the constant phenomena become our facts, and the chance phenomena hold little meaning. In other words, the unrelated individual culprits are not all that important. Yeah, that makes sense. To go further, the violence of their crimes also bears no meaning. Keiichi Maibara beats his friends to death. Shion Sonozaki killed the central people of the 3 families, and Renaryugu took over the school. They were all different. There's nothing in common there. In fact, the very, very important truth is that while the culprit in crimes are decided at random, their process of growing paranoid until they resort to violence is always constant. Yeah. So that is definitely something I've noticed up to now. The suspect changes every time, but the process does not. After comparing the different worlds, this is the truth I found. This is one truth that is common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. The rule is that a random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. This is Rule X. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Renaryugu, pieces with no particular connection, have the potential to succumb to that rule with random probability. I don't know what the probability is that those pieces will be ensnared by that rule. Perhaps there is some rule to that too. Is it because those 3 are all close in age? Or is it because they all live in Hinamizawa? Well, we're not detectives or police officers. It's not something that a small girl like us, Rika Furude, can easily figure out. Notice that's in quotes, by the way. At least we now know that there's a mysterious rule in the world of Hinamizawa. People who only live in one world have no way of knowing that. I'm proud of myself for figuring that out. I guess for you it's not particularly surprising, though. Huh? What did you say? That's right. If something is common among all worlds, that means it's fated to happen. Some events quickly come to mind, don't they? Yeah. Tomatake, that's his name. Right. Jiro Tomatake and Mio Takano were always killed in those worlds. Well, is she? I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping on that one. Maybe we'll see. But I feel like, dude, if I've been this confident and was talking to her the whole time and that she's faking her death, she's not. On top of that, they're murdered in exactly the same way in every world. In other words, unlike our previous rule with its variability, their murders are thoroughly planned out by someone with a strong will. That does not fit with the mysterious, vague Rule X that leads to a random individual to violence. After all, they are always murdered, regardless of who falls to Rule X. I was going to say, that's the most blatant constant, you know? Therefore, there's another rule with these worlds, a rule that says Jiro Tomatake and Mio Takano will get killed on the night of Watanagashi. Let's call it Rule Y. Don't you see how funny this is? Jiro Tomatake and Mio Takano are killed in every world, right? Every time, the character who gets cursed always thinks that their deaths have something to do with the danger that's awaiting them. The fact that someone turns violent, Rule X, and Jiro Tomatake and Mio Takano's death, Rule Y, are supposed to be 2 independent rules, but they all tend to link them together. Of course, one could say that's how they become ensnared in the spell of paranoia leading them to violence to begin with. But do you think, in their paranoia, that they notice someone is trying to lead them to link those rules together? Yes. Whoever the piece leading them is, they're the one making this stage called Hinamizawa very complicated. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I've directly called out that they always use the deaths of Toмотake and the supposed death of Takano, but I mean, like I've definitely said they're clearly using like paranoia and fear to lead them, you know, like to like do something, like to that violence. You should have noticed at least two suspicious people. Do you know who I'm talking about? That's right. What, Irie and Takano? That's who I'd think. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, no, Oishi too. Oishi is suspicious. I'm referring to Kurado Oishi and Mio Takano. Yeah, I kind of thought Irie was going to be there. But yeah. When you compare previous fragments, the role of the piece known as Kurado Oishi becomes clear. He's a detective who is retiring this year, and he's in a hurry to solve the mystery of the series of deaths in Hinamizawa. After he retires, he'll have to move away from the village. That's why he's desperate to solve this case before he has to leave Hinamizawa. Why is he so obsessed with the serial murders in Hinamizawa? The very first one killed, like, a friend of his, right? Like, it might just be that simple. That's right. Because of the first murder involving the manager of the construction site, the victim was Oishi's close friend. Yeah, I was going to say. You will see that if you look at the Himatsubushi chapter. Yeah, so, I mean, it always has made sense why he's, like, so interested in solving this. There's just so many suspicious things surrounding him that sometimes you can't help but wonder if he's who he looks like he is, you know? Oishi was there when the damn conflict was at its peak. He saw how the Sonozaki family took control of the Onigifuchi Guardians, and he believed that the Sonozaki family was pulling the strings behind the whole incident. That's why he always suspected that the Sonozaki family was behind the series of mysterious deaths, regardless of the evidence or lack thereof. His personal, biased belief, combined with his credibility as a police detective, affected the pitiable victims of persecution complexes in each world. Yeah, he did. As a result, the pitiful victims of Rule X come to accept that the Sonozaki family is the identity of the unknown force their paranoia seeks. Yeah, that is true. That is true, actually. Shion Sonozaki's case was the most conspicuous one in that matter. So yes, if this piece, Oishi, didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. I've always felt that he intends good and then he always misleads, right? Unintentionally. So the role his piece plays is to indirectly cause the tragedy. I don't know who named him this, but Oyashiro-sama's servant is the perfect nickname for Oishi. The other suspicious person is Mio Takano. One would assume the only role of her piece is to amuse herself with research into Onigifuchi's dreadful history, and to take pleasure in scaring others with those tales. However, just like Oishi, she also gives them the idea that the Sonozaki family is behind all the mysterious incidents that happen in the village. Yeah, I was gonna say, she like directly says it. And, like, she interfered the most with Rena Ryugu. For Mio Takano, Rena Ryugu was the perfect prey, grasping at straws to try and identify the force she suspected. I mean, it was pretty close with Shion, in my opinion, like, about who she intervened with the most, but I would definitely give it to Rena, right? But it was pretty bad with Shion, too. Ironically, however, Mio Takano always ends up getting killed at the end. If she had survived and seen Rena take over the school, she would have laughed long and loud. Now, have you realized that these two pieces in the roles they fulfill have their own rule, too? They talk about the Sonozaki family, and the listeners always believe them. This is Rule Z. What a humorous rule it is. You should already have an answer to this mystery in your fragments on hand. The fact is that the Sonozaki family always acts as if they're responsible, no matter if they are or not. They always pretend to be the villains in order to make sure that people continue to fear them. Yeah, I was gonna say, that's been, like, explicitly mentioned. As a result, the villagers have believed that the Sonozaki family has been pulling the strings ever since the damn conflict ended. Kurado Oishi and Mio Takano were simply fooled by that rule. Actually, the whole village is fooled by it. Still, the more I think about it, the stranger the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa seems to me. Do you know why? Nearly all of the fragments of memories we have here are from 1983, so I have no idea about the incidents from 1980 to 1982. But it's likely that interpreting these murders as serial is simply a result of falling victim to Rule Z, believing that the Sonozaki family is pulling the strings behind everything. In short, they may be trying to conflate those multiple crimes, which each happen for different reasons, into one big case. I feel like that's something I've suggested before. Right, is that they don't necessarily have to be related, right, intentionally. Well, I have no way of discerning the truth from the fragments here. Still, perhaps something lies in one of them. Each case was supposed to have been solved individually, after all. We don't know if that theory is sound or irrational, but it might surprisingly be an element we can't ignore. That reminds me, Shion said something intriguing in the Higurashi chapter. That curse system she came up with. Do you remember that? Her theory was that the villagers believed that they are allowed to kill an enemy of the village on the night of Watanagashi, in the name of Yashiro-sama's curse. And that this foundation of murder is allowed on that night alone is the true identity of the curse. Since most of the fragments here are from 1983, there's nothing to back the validity of Shion's theory, but there are still interesting things about it. In other words, her theory is that the suspect is not the one who's committing the crime. It's the environment that's causing the murder. I feel like I've also suggested exactly this before. I don't know that this was my leading theory, like recently, but I know I've suggested exactly this before. People in a single world tend to analyze a criminal's life to determine the process that led them to crime, but her idea is different. The real crime is committed not by the criminals, but by the environment. In other words, it may only be happenstance that Robber A committed the crime, and the environment of poverty may have created Robber B instead, or perhaps even Robber C. Yeah, that makes sense. A may not even be a criminal in another world. Therefore, the real criminal is not A, but the environment that creates A, B, or C. And, well, while people in a single world may be able to reach such an idea, the widespread desire to place blame commonly causes A to be lynched by society, while the environment that gave rise to A goes ignored. Did I confuse you? I'm sorry. Perhaps that example is actually harder to understand for you. It's easy for me to see it like that because I'm from the normal world. Let me make it simple for you. The culprit behind the tragedy in many worlds isn't individuals like Keiichi Maibara or Shion Sonozaki, but the environment. So, Rule X is the true culprit at fault. You're earning good marks if you can grasp that, even if we don't know the identity of Rule X. And if you can grasp the 3 rules governing the stage called Hinamizawa, Rules X, Y, and Z, then you're earning very good marks. So long as you understand those rules, then even if this is your first experienced world, you should easily find the truth without distraction. See? Isn't it fun? Merely 3 simple rules are interacting on this stage, creating a kaleidoscope of different worlds. This is probably a very unusual case. In other locations, you shouldn't be able to see such extreme variation even after looping through several worlds. It keeps me entertained just staying here and watching these worlds revolve. Anyway, there's one more fact we can understand from these fragments of worlds. This is the biggest problem we Rika Furudes are facing. The fact that Rika Furude always dies each time. It's as if June 1983 is a dead end for her. Worse, there's no randomness to it, it's guaranteed to happen. In other words, it's the same pattern as the deaths of Jiro Tomotage and Mio Takano. Yeah, this is another thing that I know I've pointed out as a constant. It's following the exact same rule, Rule Y. To Rule Y, it's just the constants rule. Tomotage Jiro and Takano Mio are always murdered on the night of Watanagashi. Furude Rika's date of death is not always the same, but she's always dead by the middle of June. Jiro Tomotage and Mio Takano were probably attacked on their way home, so that's why it always happens on the same night. But for Rika Furude, it's different. She takes different actions in every world, and her lifestyle is very unpredictable. For that reason, the day of her death is not always the same. However, she always dies in June, because a similar powerful conviction vows to kill her too. So can we assume that the same Rule Y killing them is also the rule behind her death? Is the same person killing all 3 of them? I don't know if it's the same person, but it's highly likely that the same rule is at work. Is it the same person? Or the same organization? Is it the same views? The same goals? Rika's most important goal is to escape her deadly fate. But it doesn't mean that she just wants to leave the village and survive. She wants to live happily in the village. All of her friends must also be happy too. That's Rika's happy future. The ideal future she hopes for. It's tragic that we can't realize such a simple desire no matter how many times we repeat this. Though it's a tragedy we're only able to perceive, because we're beings capable of comparing the fragments from different worlds. By the way, I have some interesting information. While Rika's almost always killed by Rule Y, have you noticed that she's killed by Rule X in some worlds? Yes, I have. That's kind of something I pointed out earlier, is that I assumed it was linked to the disaster, and it might still be. But literally this video, I pointed out, like, I mean, there are exceptions, right? It's not always the case. Right. It happened in the Watanagashi and the Higurashi chapters. Rika Furude committed suicide, but you can say she was more or less killed by Rule X via Shion Sonozaki in those worlds. In other words, this is a blunder for Rule Y. Rule Y is trying to kill Rika with a strong desire to achieve some aim, but she was killed before that as a result of the unrelated Rule X. That might have caused them to show some disturbance. If Rule Y's objective is to simply bury Rika, then that's not a problem. But if they have some objective beyond that, then that might show up as some other phenomenon. Perhaps the Watanagashi and Mayakashi chapters have something in common. Something that doesn't happen in the other worlds. Unfortunately, we're Rika Furude, so we don't know what happens after Rika is dead. Or, by any chance, do you know what happened? Since I'm Rika Furude, I only know of events during Rika's life. You, on the other hand, are a special existence who was born in a superior world. Is there anything that didn't happen in the Watanagashi and Mayakashi chapters that happened in all the other worlds after Rika's death? If you know anything, then that must be another truth behind Rule Y. Okay, so I feel like they might be hinting that the great disaster didn't happen. It didn't happen. Please make note of that. The memories I have here are all mainly about the chaos brought about by Rika's friends, that is, Rule X. But its foundation, Rule Z, and the obvious hostility common among all worlds, Rule Y, are what I believe to be the true rules governing this stage. If so, then Rika's path is a thorny one. She needs to fight Rule Y in order to survive. Unless she defeats it, she has no future past June 1983, and to win her own happiness, she must also beat Rule X to win her friend's safety. So long as that's undefeated, one of Rika's precious friends may be led to tragedy. If that happens, then even should Rika survive, she wouldn't have the happy future she hopes for. She also may have to defeat Rule Z, just as Sonozaki Shion faced it in Mayakashi. So long as Rule Z remains, then even if she escapes 1983, it's possible another tragedy may lie waiting in 1984. So long as the murders keep happening every year, possibly because of that mindset that it's allowed. It's extremely likely that Rule Z is the breeding ground for Rule X. Hinamizawa's fundamental belief that the Sonozaki family is behind everything, and the custom that anything can be misconstrued as the curse, may indirectly be the root of all evil here. People are not surprised to see somebody die on the night of Watanagashi. The type of thinking is keeping the curse alive in Hinamizawa, where it causes even more tragedy. It's Rule Z reinforcing itself. Rules X, Y, and Z. There are 3 rules that hunt Rika down in the eternal June of 1983. They're all tough obstacles. We didn't even figure out these 3 common rules until recently. Were you aware of them? If you were, I'll give you straight A's. I mean, I think I kind of pointed all of those out. I don't know. I'm not going to claim my theories were perfect, right? But I think for the most part, I did kind of identify that the perpetrator of who falls into paranoia, which is like kind of Rule X, right? The person it is isn't the important part, but it's the act of someone was manipulated into fear and paranoia, and then they do crazy, violent things. Rule Y is that there are constants, basically, and I've definitely pointed those out. And Rule Z was basically that the Sonozakis being blamed for everything kind of reinforces the curse system. They don't necessarily have to be related, and the more I looked into it, the more it felt like they didn't have to be related, really. If that makes sense, right? Like, what are the relations of all of these people? I don't know. I don't know that this is the final theory I landed on, really. I wouldn't say it was, but I definitely had points where I strongly considered the idea that there was no really common cause. It was just like, you can just murder someone that day, right? Anyways, let's move on. If you were, I'll give you straight A's. I've tried so hard in the past to break these rules, but I was never successful. However, a miracle happened in the Sumi Horoboshi chapter. Keiichi remembered. Keiichi Maibara was able to recognize a small fragment from another world by chance, and he beat Rule X. In the end, Rika was still killed that night by Rule Y, though. But still, one rule was defeated. That was a huge leap forward. Rika knew there were 3 common rules among the worlds, but she could never break any of them. Eventually, she gave up and lost interest in the worlds. That's how I was born. However, she's different now. She learned something valuable from Keiichi Maibara, that the rules can be broken with a strong enough will to fight. If she can break all 3 rules, Rika Furude will be freed from her eternal prison. She doesn't have much time left, though. Rika's traveled through many worlds. Her physical lifespan is not a problem, but her mental lifespan is getting shorter. Mentally, she is extremely old, and her soul is starting to turn into something different. In the end, she'll probably lose the ability to experience singular worlds. She's already showing those signs, and eventually her memories from the parallel worlds will mix together, ultimately causing her derangement and the loss of Rika Furude's soul. Then she will disappear. That means that you and I are going to be left in this dark world. The fragments of our memories will gradually disappear, and we'll be left alone in the eternal darkness, Eventually, we will die. Rika Furude is aware of that. She knows that her mental lifespan is getting shorter and shorter. Hanyu is also losing her powers. Is that the other one? Gotta be. She can't rewind through years of time like she used to. Her powers decrease so much that she can barely rewind 1 month of time. Actually, she can only rewind a few weeks. In the next world, she should only have about 2 weeks of time. Rika Furude is going to try and break all 3 rules in just those 2 weeks. Is that the explanation for the chapters typically being like all June 1983? I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I tried to claw my way up from there. I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I continued to climb even when I fell and injured myself. I finally realized the higher I climb, the more pain I feel when I fall. My curiosity toward the world and my physical pain become equal. I finally understood the meaning of the frog in the well. I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I tried to claw my way up. God damn it. They always move on from those. Also, by the way, I don't think I've said this before. I'm pretty confident that Frederica Berncastel is Rika. Maybe I've said that. Maybe I've said that. I just kind of went through some of the quotes, and they looked a lot like some of the things Rika said, specifically the frog in the well thing, right? Reminds me of some of the things she said in chapter 6. Oh, shit. I felt no gravity in the darkness and lost all my senses as a result. I banged my head on the floor with a dull thud. Seeing stars behind my eyelids, I curled into a ball while holding my head in pain. Who are we? Are we Rika? That is, I mean, I was kind of expecting Rika, right? I had no idea why I was in this situation, but as soon as I heard their voices from the top of the cliff, I realized that I must have fallen. Ah, I remember. I was playing behind the shrine with the rest of the club members. I got too excited and started doing something very dangerous, and the tree branch broke. That's how I fell off the cliff. My body started to ache all over. I remembered how I fell, but I still felt strange for some reason. I couldn't remember what I was doing. No. It was more that I couldn't remember who Rika Furude was before I fell off the cliff. I heard Hanyu's panicked voice. I looked behind me and saw Hanyu standing there with a scared look on her face. That is most definitely the person who is down there, right on the the app icon. Interesting. So I think it's safe to assume that this is the other person that Rika interacts with in some of the tips. Actually, before we move on, I just got to say that intro crawl was kind of crazy, right? I think that was the last like bastion of, if you haven't figured out a lot of the fundamental rules yet, here you go, right? Like I said, most of them I feel like I understood decently well. The only one I feel like that was even kind of debatable was my understanding on the Sonozakis potentially driving the curse. Although it seemed like even they weren't sure on that, right? If it's literally just the Sonozaki, like the idea that the Sonozakis run everything and that the environment being like you can kill once a year, if that's what causes the curse killings, they didn't even seem positive on that. Whoever we were talking to, it kind of seemed like I don't know, like who exactly were we talking to, right? I guess something I'm a little curious of is exactly, yeah, I mean, so it just seems like fragments of Rika Furude, if that makes sense. That's my best guess for who that was, because like some version of Rika, and it seemed like they were speaking directly to us as like the reader, and that basically us reading this is canon, if that makes sense. That's what it seemed like to me. Which is fascinating turn of events. I mean, that just seemed like your kind of stereotypical kind of like crossroads, right? Like, the idea of the 6 fragments that are the chapters we've read is super cool, though. That was a super interesting intro. Super interesting intro. I think most of the things that established, like I said, I kind of already mostly understood, and believed to be true. But still good to kind of see them say it, because this is the point where they're probably like going to start really explaining things here soon, and they want you to understand those core concepts. Especially with the fact that like they said, one of those rules got broken and it still didn't matter. So you got to break all of them at once. And we're in the perspective of another Rika, and Hanyu's been rewinding time, which makes sense. I kind of felt that that was possible, and possibly what was happening is that the scenario resets were deliberately someone doing that, potentially. Like, that makes sense, and that might explain why you rarely see her. Like, she needs to not be in every scenario, or like she needs to not be super obvious because her dying would ruin everything potentially, right? I guess the other interesting implication is that Rika, her like soul is like getting too old and is gonna kind of, it seems, become this great being that can't just live in one world, right? And rather has to observe all like at once is the understanding I got. But bare minimum can't be like just in one. So lots of interesting stuff in that intro. Anyways, let's see what's going on here and we'll get our first glimpse of Hanyu. I looked behind me and saw Hanyu standing there with such a scared look on her face.
Hanyu. これは一体何事なの？はうはう。リカはみんなと遊んでて崖から転げ落ちたのです。大丈夫なのですか？羽生、そんなことはどうでもいいわ。今日はいつ？昭和何年の何月何日？
I always ask this question first when something like this happens. You finally realized that I was asking the same old question.
昭和58年6月なのです。綿流しのお祭りが再来週なのですから、なんてこと。それしか猶予がないってわけ。僕たちの力も、これが精一杯なのです。
Hanyu muttered regretfully. It was the middle of June, 1983. If this really was the best she could do, I had no choice. I couldn't complain. I gradually started to remember more things.
私がまた昭和58年の6月にいるということは。
Music from the intro.
また私は殺されたのか。
After Rena surrendered to the police, all of the classmates were given checkups at the clinic. I didn't get hurt, so I was sent back home after they determined that I had no injuries. My memory started getting vague from that point on, a common characteristic of my violent deaths. When my life is taken away violently, the memory before death becomes vague but static. It's like a violently ripped roll of toilet paper. That example should make it easy to understand, even if it's uncouth. That's why I have no clear memory of what happened and how I died that night. I only have vague memories. I think someone covered my mouth with a handkerchief or something, and I passed out. That's about the only thing that I remember, and only vaguely. I'm not even sure if it really happened. The only thing I know for sure is that I was attacked on my way home, or possibly after I got there, and that I was murdered suddenly. I don't know who killed me or how I was killed. I'm glad that at least I don't remember the horrific ending to my life every time it happens. Yeah, that's actually so valid. Because of my experiences, I think I now understand why ghosts wander around this world, not knowing that they died so suddenly. If it's a death from a long-lasting illness, people tend to remember that they were sick. They can kind of assume that they died after being sick for a long time. But when your memory is violently disrupted like mine, it can get quite confusing. When I first experienced this, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not. I thought that I hit my head hard and lost my memory. I needed to organize things before I got too confused. My name is Rika Furude. People look at me in a special way, but that's not a big deal for me. All I want is a happy life where I can play around with my best friends. I can't remember how long I've been living just for the sake of obtaining that simple happiness. Okay, so she does look kind of ethereal. I wonder if she's not like an actually visible entity, right? This panicked girl here is named Hanyu. I'm the only one who can see her. Yeah, okay, so that's about what I figured. Only one that can see her, but it might her existence is probably, and I think I might have implied exactly this before. Her existence might be the explanation for things like the phantom footsteps and the phantom sounds you hear, especially when you're crazy, right? It might just be them trying to break Rule X, right? Like, hey, crazy person, please snap out of it, like, or like observing them and following them, right? Things like that. I'm the only one who can see her. Perhaps she only exists inside of my head? At any rate, Hanyu's invisible and can generally only interact with me. It'll be a long story if I try to explain Hanyu's existence, so I won't be doing that right now. Besides, I don't even know how I should talk about her. She's been there since I was born, and her existence is a natural thing for me. I saw everyone running up the gravel road toward me. I was like really confident that she was kind of this ethereal being when Hanyu was literally there in one of the tips, and Satoko walks in and never notices Hanyu, right? So it seemed likely that she might be this kind of being within Rika's head, or like I said, ethereal. I saw everyone running up the gravel road toward me. They're my important and lovable best friends. Our group's active, boisterous, and we get serious about doing stupid things. I'm never bored when I'm around them, and I love them very much.
Rika-chan, 大丈夫？捻挫とかしてない？どこ打ったの？おじさんに見せてみて。ありがとうなのです。頭にタンコブができただけなのですよ。
I think all I got was a bump, at least. My injury wasn't as serious as everyone thought.
頭を打った時はその場では大丈夫でも油断がなりませんでしたよ。
それもそうだな。念には念で監督に診察してもらった方がいいかもしれないな。
That's an interesting idea.
レナもそれがいいと思うな。どうしよう、監督を呼んでくる？そうだね。近くの家で電話を借りて監督を呼んでみるよ。そこまでしなくても大丈夫なのですよ。この通りピンピンしてますのです。ニパー。ダメですわよ、リカ。
One thing I'm kind of curious of is if this chapter is going to be like a bunch of really quick scenario resets, right? That maybe give you information. They call it the massacre chapter, right? And so I kind of wonder if it's going to be the same thing kind of very quickly over and over, especially with us getting less time, right?
万が一ということがありましたよ。
Satoko warned me with a stern voice. It really wasn't a big deal, but I decided to nod since Satoko was trying to be generous. She wasn't trying to boss me around or anything. She was only saying that because of how much she cares. I've seen it before in the many different lives that I've been through. I have no doubt that she's really concerned about me. It's not just Satoko. Mion, Rena, and Keiichi are the same. They're all so nice to me, and they truly do care. Mion left to look for a phone. Rena also left with a towel, looking for the water tap. Satoko remained nearby, taking care of me with a worried face, and Hanyu was just standing there, still wearing a panicked look. Keiichi seemed to be panicked too, but he was trying not to show it. He was standing by me, wearing a calm expression.
大丈夫か？
大丈夫なのですよ。もう全然痛くないのです。
なら不幸中の幸いだったよな。よかったよかった。
I wouldn't feel anything special about his words if this was a while ago. But at that moment when Rena took over the classroom, when she hurt Mion, Keiichi tried his best to save Rena, even so. He was more reliable than I ever imagined from his normal behavior. He's usually an insensitive guy who hurts other people's feelings without noticing, but that's not his true self. He has a secret side. He's willing to sacrifice himself for other people. Yeah, that's not very secret to me, or to the player. I was just observing that not too long ago. That's why I can honestly feel his generosity now. Now that I think about it, Keiichi regained a memory from another world the previous time around. Is it possible that he carries that memory oh my goodness, where did I even get permanently from? Is it possible that he carries that memory in this world too? If that's the case, I have some hope. Hanyu and I are totally powerless. Hanyu's only like heir to everyone but me, and I'm just a little girl. There's only so much that we can do ourselves, but Keiichi is different. He changed the fate that I had once resigned myself to. He's somebody who may have the power to take me to my unseen future. If I can get Keiichi to understand me, he could be my hero. Perhaps I'm actually not expecting that much out of him. I just want someone to understand my struggle of being stuck in this maze.
Keiichi?
I spoke to him slowly. It had been a while since I felt so nervous. I hadn't felt this way since I started my endless life in 1983. As a witch, I normally would know what his response would be even before talking to him. I often remained silent because I already know how pitiful the reply would be. But in that case, why was I so nervous now? That is kind of crazy. Also just straight up calling her a witch, right? Like, calling herself that, rather. That's okay. I mean, we knew she had something supernatural going on that's been exceedingly obvious and then outright confirmed this chapter, even more so, right, like than it had been before. But just straight up calling herself a witch. But seeing her get nervous is kind of crazy.
呼んだかリカちゃん。
Hanyu gave me a disappointed look before I responded to Keiichi.
リカ。
I could tell what Hanyu was thinking too. Miracle wasn't going to happen. If miracles do happen, one could have happened many times in my other lives, but I've only seen one miracle before. The miracle that Keiichi gave me was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of miracle. Only if it happened again would it be a true miracle. I won't get out of this world just because I rolled 6 on the die once. I can't get out unless I get a miracle that's equivalent to getting 6 on the die 10 times in a row. So, I rolled 10 dice, wishing that they'd all turn out to be 6.
ケイチ。
どうしたんだよ。どこか痛むのか？
He looked at me worriedly after I called his name twice.
ケイチは覚えていますですか？
I knew how sudden my question was. As I thought he would, he looked at me with a confused face.
え？覚えてるって何の話だよ？
He doesn't remember. I looked inside his eyes to see his true feelings. He should remember. He should know. Even though he doesn't have the memory, Keiichi experienced it.
なんですのケイチさん。何かリカに悪いことでもしたんじゃありませんの？自分の胸によく聞いてごらんなさいですわよ。
Satoko was there. Whoops.
ケイチ、学校の屋根の上に登ったことを覚えていますですか？学校の屋根？
Bro.
ケイチさん、そんなとこに登ったんですの？サトコは黙っててなのです。
Damn, she said, shut up.
ケイチ、覚えていませんですか？
No, but this is important to her. She really needs him to remember that.
俺が屋根の上にいつ？いや、リカちゃん、それは多分他の誰かの勘違いだろ。
That's unfortunate.
俺屋根なんか登ったことないし、登り方だって知らないよ。
Of course you haven't experienced it in this world yet. But please tell me that you remember. I know you've never been up on the roof, but you should still remember doing it. You shouldn't be able to remember it, true, but you actually did once. You should be able to remember it once again.
屋根の上にボールでも取りに行ったんじゃありませんの？
Poor Rika.
いや、そんな経験一度もねえよ。サトコは経験あるか？
まさか屋根の上なんて上がったら先生に怒られましたよ。
Yeah, no kidding.
でもさ、屋根の上で昼寝とかしたら気分が良さそうだよな。
覚えてるわけないのですよ。
Ugh.
そんな簡単に奇跡が起こるなら僕もリカもこんな苦労はしないのですよ。
Dude, off of this chapter already, I'm starting to like Rika more. I'm not gonna lie. Knowing everything she's been through and the way she's fighting, I always like that part of her character, but even just right now, seeing it from her perspective, I already like, I don't know, maybe put it into a little more perspective. I think she's a very, very interesting character, right? Like, shut up. I knew that. I knew that he wouldn't remember.
どうせまた僕たちはお祭りの終わりとともに消えてゆく夏のセミの運命なのです。うるさいな。
As I stared at her fiercely, Hanyu realized that she had crossed a line. This might be a waste of time. The maze we're in might not have an exit. It might be an endless loop without a goal in place. We're trapped in this fate. I thought that Keiichi might be able to get me out of here. That Keiichi I saw was truly a miracle, a momentary glimmer. The Keiichi of this world doesn't bear that same miracle. All the same, I'm not gonna give up. Last time too, I gave up on fighting destiny. I realized Rena was beyond salvation, so I bid her farewell and forsook that world. But Keiichi fought and broke the cycle of fate. I should have worked harder with that Keiichi in that world. I could have broken this endless cycle together with him. Am I going to repeat this life, waiting for that miracle to happen again? I can't do that. I don't want to repeat the same life anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this world, my fate and everything. I'm tired of getting murdered by destiny. Keiichi showed me a miracle. I should be able to do the same too. I must fight. I must fight with all my remaining power. I was always fighting. I was fighting when I had more power, but I never made it. How can I expect to win this time? Still, I must fight. Keiichi taught me that fate can be shattered. I'm gonna fight one more time. Interesting. This was one of the... I mean, this has got to be, like, the best intro they've set up, if you ask me. Right? Like, there's just, like, the whole beginning part kind of laying things out, and then starting... Then we finally get to see some things from Rena's... Not Rena! Rika's perspective. Why do I always mix those two names up? I know who is who, but I just keep saying the names backwards. It's obviously because they both start with R, but God. But finally getting to see things from Rika's perspective is super fascinating, and it's something I've wanted to see for a while now. Anyways, let's go ahead and read the first tip to my granddaughter. I'm sorry for leaving you like this. I just need you to understand that I'd rather take my own life than be fearful of how many days I have left to live. That's why I'm writing this letter to you. I can't stand the fear of being unable to leave behind a will while my life is prolonged, even as I lose my consciousness. In the end, there's nothing I can leave behind for you. I was unable to leave any of my achievements to this world. I was forgotten before I was dead. I leave this world a humiliated man, knowing that I had no appreciation from anyone. You must do better than me. You must achieve something that your grandfather was never able to achieve. I don't mind what field you choose. You must leave your mark on this world. You must leave behind your achievements. You will eventually die someday. You will eventually turn to ashes. As a human being, that's your inevitable fate. But if you achieve a great success, you will live forever even after you depart. Those who live beyond their deaths are called gods. I wish to become one, but I was unable to do so. So in my place, you must become a god someday. Okay, so that's interesting. First of all, I think it's the very obviously, like, big thing in here. This was presumably, this is written from the perspective of the grandfather, who said, where was it? I'd rather take my own life. I think this is implying that the grandfather killed himself, which means it wasn't a curse killing and that there is no series of murders at all, actually. That's a gargantuan implication in that tip. If I'm not misremembering who died first there, like if it was the grandmother that died, then perhaps I have this backwards. Now I'm actually curious, like, did I have this wrong in the first place? Okay, as I was saying before the game rudely decided to crash, so I reread this tip, and there was very, very obvious flaw in my logic. My first reaction, is that the grandfather is not the one who died on Watanagashi. That was the father. I pulled up a line from chapter 1, quickly looked at my video because I realized I couldn't remember if it was the grandfather or the father who died on Watanagashi, like as the priest. And it says the Shinto priest and his wife who died in the 3rd year, you see their daughter is Rika Furude. So clearly this was not written from the person who got killed on Watanagashi. Also, my game crashed, so we have to go through this again. We're just going to do that so I can scroll through it. So I'm going to say it's really everything else in here that's relevant. I mean, him killing himself is obviously, like, kind of tragic, but, like, it's more like her getting this source of kind of motivation, like, you have to do something, you must achieve something, right? Leave your mark on the world. You're gonna die someday, so have a great success. And it's probably something that's motivated Rika up to this point, right? Which is super cool to see. I think that's all this is. I think that's all this is, but it's still super cool to see. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue. Had to go to the doctor in the end anyways.
もう結構ですよ。
Irie withdrew the needles from Satoko's arm. It must not have hurt much for the needle to be pulled out. Satoko kept her eyes closed in fear, thinking that the needle was still inside her arm.
さとこ、お注射はもう終わったのですよ。
That's like kind of cursed. Seeing Takano like actually in her nurse uniform. That's like moderately cursed.
あら、もう終わってたんですの。
As Satoko opened her eyes, she found that Irie was no longer sitting in front of her. Takano was wiping her arm with rubbing alcohol instead.
そうよ。もう終わってたのよ。入江先生は私よりお注射が上手だから。終わったことにも気づかなかったでしょ。傷口を揉んじゃダメよ。できれば重いものも持たないこと。
分かっていましたよ。さとこは偉いのですよ。なでなでしてあげますのです。
Common Rika W.
注射くらいもう全然平気ですのよ。リカに撫でられるような覚えはございませんですわ。
Not long ago, she would go into a panic when it was time for her to get her shot. The way she behaved today in itself was worthy of praise. Everyone in the room smiled, aware of that growth.
じゃあ、さとこちゃんはいつもの検査を受けてください。高野さん、お願いします。
ええ。さあ、さとこちゃん。いつものクイズをしましょうね。
高野さんのクイズは答えにくい問題が多くて私苦手ですわね。
いつもと同じよ。答えづらい問題はわからないと言ってくれればいいわ。変に考え込まず、自然に思いついた答えを口にしてくれればいいのよ。
I'm interested to see what this is. Takano smiled at Satoko to ease her tension. And then she led Satoko to a desk in the back of the examination room.
さとこの具合、良いといいのです。
I don't know if it's because of the heat, but Satoko has been showing negative symptoms since last month. The change of the seasons can affect her physically and emotionally. It's not a surprise that this is happening to her.
私は入江たちのところへでも行って、さとこの容体を聞いてみるわ。羽生はどうする？僕はさとこのそばにいてあげますのです。ありがとう。そうしてあげて。
So Hanyu can, like, split off, then. They don't have to be, like, directly near each other, which is interesting. Useful information in and of itself. Could lead to some of the theories about the kind of supernatural sounds and stuff being Hanyu making more sense. Also, I mean, we're talking about things like negative symptoms. I don't assume it's anything too crazy, probably just regarding her mental state, specifically because of like the things she's gone through up to this point. I can imagine that's had a toll on her mentally. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if it was like just depression or something. I don't know, maybe there's an alternate psyche in there that they're suppressing. I don't know. Right, I'm gonna lean something closer to like depression, right? Like, but let's just keep moving for now. Hanyu went over to where Satoko was. Fortunately, I'm the only one who can see Hanyu. She won't be a distraction if she goes and observes Satoko's test. I, of course, would be a distraction like that. This is supposed to be a routine exam, but it seems like Takano is teasing her by giving her difficult questions. It would be pretty funny to observe how Satoko reacts to them. I'm a little jealous that Hanyu gets to watch everything without being a bother to Satoko. Irie was talking with two of the other staff members about Satoko's exam results. I walked up and joined them.
よかった。では、解放に向かっていますか。
From what Irie was saying, her results must have turned out well.
入江、どうなのですか？
安心してください。いい結果が出ました。では、あとよろしくお願いします。
You too. Surely he means Rika and Satoko, right? And not Rika and Hanyu? Surely. After ordering his staff to continue their work, Yurie showed me some difficult paperwork and started explaining it to me.
先週の検査結果に少々焦りすぎたようです。急に気候が変わったので、交感神経が過敏に反応したのでしょう。風邪をひきかけたりということはありませんでしたか？
There was one night recently that was fairly hot. Satoko was sleeping without her blanket and her stomach was exposed. She might have caught a cold that night.
お腹を出して寝てたことがありましたです。おへそをつっついたけど起きなかったのです。
それは羨まし
You would say
い。
that.
ぜひ今度そういうことがあったら呼んでください。
No.
私もさとこちゃんのおへそをプニプニしてみたいものです。
プニプニなのですよ。お腹もぽよぽよなのです。かわいいからお布団をかけるのがもったいないのですよ。
それが寝冷えの真相ですか。
Don't really think that's how that works. But, alright.
聞こえていましたよ。そういう時はこっそりお布団をかけてくださいませ。
ダメよさとこちゃん。時間も計ってるんだからこっちに集中して。
Yurie, Hanyu, and I all laughed. Satoko went back to her test with a bitter look on her face. Yurie began speaking to me in a softer voice.
ただ小康状態には戻りましたが、レベルはレベル3マイナス。昨日も今日も明日も危険な状態を脱していないことに変わりはありません。
So they're hiding the truth from her.
レベル3は永遠に治らないのですか？
アナフィラキシーショックと同じで、仮に異物が完全に取り除かれても人体側に過剰な反応を示す体質が作られてしまいます。つまり
さとこは完治しても一生レベル3から治らない。
What is going on here?
そういうことになり
It
ます。
seems like this might be more serious than I expected.
ですが悲観することはありません。規則正しい生活習慣とセルフコントロール、そしてある種の投薬を続けることによって症状の発生を抑えることができます。
一生治らない。
I looked at Satoko as she enjoyed taking her test. She seemed to be having fun, even while being teased by Takano. Oh, what is that cable management? No, what is that, bro? What is that jumbled mess? It's disgusting. I can't believe that she's suffering from an incurable disease.
言葉を悪く言えばそうなります。ですが世の中には難病ではあってもうまく病気と付き合っていけるケースも少なくありません。
例えば糖尿病がそうでしょう。
That was clearly not the original voice actor, so I'm guessing this line was changed in some way or another. Me, like... Here. It's F10, right. Got it on 2, which is the default. A little curious what it says around here. I might check it out later. For now, we're just gonna keep moving.
病気そのものは生涯治りませんが、その発症は抑えることができます。
I know that very well. There are many worse diseases in the world. Satoko might be in a relatively good situation compared to many other sick people.
もちろんこれで妥協するつもりはありません。さとこちゃんはきっと完治させます。絶対にです。
信じてますですよ。
ええ、信じてください。
Yurie spoke to me with a serious look on his face. As Satoko's best friend, I felt relieved to hear his words. I'm sure he'll do his best to save Satoko's life. I have no doubt that he'll do so. I've seen him act like this in every life I've lived. I also know why he's so passionate to save her, but I'm not supposed to know about it in this life. That's why I always pretend not to see his sad smile.
そうだ、リカさん。月末にまた少し大掛かりな検査があります。
What exactly is the reason? Kind of curious. Because you have some kind of connection to her, like... I mean, because we've seen this before, that he's obviously, like, devoted in a way to, like he wants the best for Satoko. He's a little weird about it sometimes, but I don't know. You definitely got to wonder who exactly he is, right? Like, I feel like he's like somehow related to her. Like, in my head, there are like instant crazy thoughts of like, what if he's like Satoshi? What if he's her dad? Right? But I'm like, none of those really make sense, right? Like, we saw what Satoshi looked like a year ago, and I don't think it developed to that, this quickly. And I don't know exactly how long Irie's been here, but I think it's more time than Satoshi's been missing. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure the Irie Clinic has been around for longer than that, because we definitely saw Irie in... Actually, no. I mean, we absolutely saw Irie in Chapter 4, so he's been here for a long time, so anything like that isn't really possible, short of, like, really supernatural shenanigans, But I'm like, I gotta assume that if he's gotta have some kind of relation to Satoko, right? That Rika knows about. I wonder if she's gonna, like, make a mental note of it, by the way. Or, I don't know why I said by the way. Like, at some point. Because she's not supposed to know about it in this life, but she does know. I don't know. Or maybe whatever ails her is, like, hurt somebody close to Irie. I don't know.
今度は僕がモルモットになる番なのですか？
そんなつもりは。医学に貢献していただいていますし、大勢の人を救うことにもなります。
Irie's guinea pig is not just Satoko. I'm also one of them. Although guinea pig is probably not the right term. Without Irie's efforts, Satoko would not be here today. For that reason, I should be showing respect to this man. I smiled at him, since my choice of words had hurt his feelings.
僕を調べてサトコの治療に役立つのなら僕がモルモットで
ご協力を感謝します。もう少し人と設備とお金があればこれだけの負担をかけないのですが。
The next moment, the phone rang. Irie answered it in his usual business-like tone.
はい、もしもし。
東京から外線です。そちらへ回します。
From Tokyo. I could hear the voice from the phone.
ああ、リサさんですね。もう今年もそんな時期になりましたか。電話は所長室で取りますから、そっちへ回してください。
Now that's fascinating, because Risa is someone that Irie knew who was dead in Chapter 3. So I'm going under the assumption that it's Tomatake. That time of year already, I'm going to pick it up at the office. Will you transfer it there? Is Tomatake actually coming to drop something off? Is that, like, part of why he visits Hinamizawa every year?
はい。ではすみません。そちらの受話器を一度切ってください。
わかりました。リカさん、すみません。東京からの電話です。
いってらっしゃいなのですよ。
As soon as Irie hung up the phone in the other room started ringing. He left the examination room and headed toward the office. Hanyu returned to my side as soon as Irie left. Hanyu doesn't like to be around me when I'm talking with Irie. I don't think she dislikes him. It's just that she doesn't really want to hear what he has to say. Irie doesn't mean any harm, but Hanyu is often hurt by the things that come out of his mouth.
どう？サトコの様子は？
Interesting. What about what Irie says is that harmful? Like, to Hanyu? Like, what bothers her so much?
サトコは相変わらず間違い探しは下手くそなのです。僕の方がいっぱい見つけられましたのですよ。あんたの検査結果なんてどうでもいいでしょ。サトコの結果はどうなの？
I thought she was there to check on Satoko, but she was taking the quiz alongside her instead. That's so typical of Hanyu. She was treating it almost like a game, but Satoko was tired after taking the same quiz every week. She seemed sleepy, especially after waking up so early this morning. The quiz in this case wasn't about a right or wrong answer. It was about timing, in minutes, how long it took her to answer the question, and observing how she acted during the quiz. Not all of the questions would be simple ones, so Satoko often got headaches, more so than even the spelling tests we'd take at school.
もうほとんど終わりなの？はいです。今、高野が持っているのが最後の一冊なのですよ。
Takano was showing a book to Satoko with abstract pictures inside. I couldn't even tell if that was supposed to be a picture. It was just a symmetrical ink stain.
さあ、これで最後よ。これは何に見えるかしら？
Both Hanyu and I looked at the picture over Satoko's shoulders. Even I didn't know what to answer when looking at that strange ink stain.
と、
Satoko continued to think. Takano observed her, taking notes while Satoko struggled. She was also timing how long it took her to answer, holding a stopwatch under the table. I spoke to Hanyu so only she could hear me.
羽生は何に見える？このシミ。ソフトクリームなのです。すべて落としてしまって地面にべっしゃりとなのです。もったいない。なるほど。実に相手の考えがわかるテストね。
Alright, so what's Satoko gonna say? To me, it looked like a horse mackerel that had been cut open and its guts pulled out. Okay. I was thinking of food too. It was rather shocking to learn that my thought processes are the same as Hanyu's. Well, to a
何に
degree,
見える
sure.
かしら？思いつきでいいのよ。
Satoko must not be very good at this test. She always takes a long time to answer questions like this. She finally opened her mouth to speak.
2匹の蝶々が重なっている感じですわね。
2匹の蝶々が重なって。いいわよ。続けて。どうして蝶々は重なっているのかしら？
Takano continued to take notes as Satoko spoke. Curious about what she was writing, I looked, but... Is that German? I can't read it at all. Takano is so mean.
ずっと離れ離れで会えなかった蝶々がやっと一緒になれて喜んでるところごめんなさいですわね。私も何を言ってるのか自分でよくわかりませんわね。
いえ、そういう答え方でいいのよ。思いついたことが抽象的ならそのまま口にしてくれればいいの。そういう検査なんだから。
本当にこんなへんてこな絵の感想を言うだけで検査になりますの？
なるわよ。
I don't really know what to say to this part. It wasn't some like what she said wasn't some revelation that was like wildly horrifying or super indicative. I mean, it might show that she like, I don't know, maybe like longs for like that feeling of closeness. I guess that's the best I've got, like with a friend, right? Like, or maybe like I don't know, she wants to reunite with someone. Like, I guess like, I mean, I think like Satoshi, right? Like maybe that's what this is supposed to test, like her mental state, like what like her true desires are, but like I don't know.
例えば今のこの絵だけど、
What she thinks about most of the time subconsciously.
去年のさとこちゃんは別な答えを出してるの。それを比べるだけでもこの1年のあなたの変化を測ることができるわよ。
Right.
なんだか嫌なテストですわね。去年の私はこの絵に何て答えたのでございますの？
Takano smiled and took a note without answering her question. I tried to remember what her answer was, but I have more than 100 years worth of memories in my head. Hanyu might remember better than I do. As I looked at Hanyu, I realized that she was standing there with a sad expression. I decided not to ask her. I could tell what kind of answer Satoko gave back then just by looking at Hanyu's face. Last year, June 1982, that was when Satoko was being abused by her cruel aunt. Recalling that, I didn't even want to know what Satoko answered. But just a year later, the Satoko who was so worn down could no longer be seen. She became so strong. I know how difficult it was for her to stay tough and strong like this. Her growth over the past year is overwhelming to me.
ケンさん、終わりましたか？
Yuri returned from his office.
終わりましたわ。
だいぶさとこちゃんも手際が良くなりましたわ。 今日はだいぶ早く終わりましたのよ。
早く終わらせるように頑張ったんですもの。今日は用事がある日だからのんびりとはできませんのよ。
おや、今日は何かあるんですか？日曜日ではありませんでしたっけ？
今日はみんなでミーのおじさんのおもちゃ屋さんで部活があるのですよ。
なるほど。さとこちゃんが妙に今日はおとなしく検査に従ってくださると思いました。予定が詰まっていたんですね。それは悪いことをしました。ではさとこちゃん、これはいつものです。
Irie put a big paper bag on the table. He opened it up and gave her instructions about the medications. Satoko had heard the same instructions over and over before, but Irie still continued to talk just the same.
状態がいいようですので、お注射はこれまでの日に2回に戻します。
2 per day?
昼食前と就寝前の2回に必ず注射をしてください。注射針は必ず変えるように。同じ針を2度使ってはいけませんよ。それからこちらはどうしても体調が悪くなった時のみ食後に。
I want to say, like, when I think, like, the shots, right? I think, like, in, like, the syringes, I think to the, to what, Rika has in Chapter 2, right? Which seems to be, like, the cure, right? To the craziness. I wonder if Satoko just has, like, a long-lasting case of that, right? Which would also partially explain why she was low-key kind of crazy in Chapter 3, right? I don't know that I'd call it low-key, to be honest. Why she was kind of crazy at the end of Chapter 3, maybe she just wasn't getting the medicine she needed. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Like, it would explain two different things at once, like how Rika has that syringe, and why Satoko seemed to be so crazy in Chapter 3, right?
はいはいはい。いつもと同じですわよ。わかっていましたよ。
Satoko couldn't wait to meet our friends for the club activity. It made me feel happy to see her as excited as this.
注射2本に戻りましたのですよ。よかったのです。
The number of shots she has to take each day represents how well she's doing. So it's a good thing she has to take fewer shots.
大変よね。1日に2本も注射を打つのは。
Yeah, I can imagine. Someone her age having to manually give herself several shots a day. Anu grew quiet after hearing my comment. Irie handed her the paper bag after he finished his instructions.
リカ、終わりましたよ。
ええ、お疲れ様。検査中からずっとそわそわしてたからね。いってらっしゃいな。
すみませんわね、上の空で。いつも検査をしてくださって感謝していますのよ。
ほら、もう時間がないんじゃないの？私の車で送ろうかしら。そうそう。また車に新しいぬいぐるみがあるのよ。今度は約束通り、さとこちゃんが名前をつけてくれていいわよ。
あら、何のぬいぐるみでございますかしら。どんな名前にしようか迷いますわね。何の動物のぬいぐるみなんですの？
また猫なのよ。今度は虎島なの。可愛いからきっと気に入ってくれるわよ。
Satoko and Takano are good friends. They're both fond of stuffed animals. Every time Takano gets a new one, she brags about it to Satoko. That's all they have in common, but having a friend like Takano is a special thing for Satoko. She's part of the Hojo family who tried to betray the village. People at the clinic are the only adults who will even talk to Satoko. That's interesting. With all the villainization I've done of Takano, it's kind of interesting seeing the like the nurse side of her, right? Friends with Satoko, like. That's a different side that we've never really seen.
じゃあお二人とも部活行ってらっしゃい。罰ゲームが未定でしたらぜひメイド服の着用を提案してくださいね。
Alright, bro.
サイズから種類までいろいろと取り揃えておりますので。
Pack it up, bro.
また来週お会いしましょう。
嫌なこったなのですよ。また来週なのです。さ、行きましょうですわ。今日は部活メンバーだけじゃありませんものね。腕が鳴りましたよ。
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this point we know what this one is. At this meeting at the club store, or like the game store. I assume it's the one from Chapter 2, or something similar to it. About slightly and made to leave the examination room, but I soon realized something. Yuri was looking at me with a sad expression on his face. Just with that look, I could tell what he wanted to say. Please take care of Satoko-chan if something happens to her. I nodded at him and stepped out into the hallway with Satoko.
やれやれ。検査は慣れても疲れますわね。検査、お嫌なのですか？めんどくさいから嫌ではありますけど、これも仕事ですもの。仕方ありませんわ。
Yeah, fair enough. Satoko is supporting Irie's research. She gets financial support by helping him out, or at least that's what Satoko thinks she's doing. They got it. They trick her a little bit. Oh, man. So I'm guessing she doesn't know about what's really going on. Satoko was bursting with enthusiasm, so we headed to Okonomiya at full speed. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that scene. At first, I was like, what is this scene? Like, there's got to be... At this point in the game, I didn't think they'd have a scene like that didn't serve a purpose. I'm not saying there can't be fun scenes in this chapter. We might be about to get one, right? We very well might be about to. But that kind of scene, I'm like, it wasn't a fun scene, right? Like, for the most part. And so I was like, what is the purpose of this scene, right? And I think by the end, we got a decent bit of information. So there's some... Satoko has some kind of illness. What exactly the nature of it is, I don't know. I don't know. My best guess is it's the craziness, right? That's my best guess. And that's why, and she's taking shots for it. But I don't know, at the same time, Yuri is, like, talking about it never being, like, curable, basically, which is a little interesting, given that it seemed like, I don't know, when I think about, like, the same craziness in Rena, it wasn't the same thing, right? Like, it seemed curable, right, through a mindset change. Maybe that was only a temporary solution. I guess given, like, I don't know, it might have just been a temporary thing, and she would have been permanently, like, prone to the same thing happening to her, right? I guess when you think about Shion, right, she went cuckoo before the game, and she kind of got over it, but then in, like, another chapter, the same thing happened to her again, so maybe it's like you're always prone to that stress response if you're not taking the shots. I don't know. For sure. That's my best guess as to what that is, especially because it would explain, like I said, Chapter 3 Satoko kind of going crazy. It would explain why Rika has syringes around. But either way, it's kind of a depressing state of affairs for Satoko. Why is everything in Satoko's life so depressing? Like, actually, such a tragic character. Like... I mean, she has some incurable disease that we know, as far as we know. She doesn't really have friends, like adult friends, that will speak to her in the village because of her family, right? And what they tried to do. And so her only friends are like her doctors, right? Who kind of bring her there under false pretenses. She thinks she's helping with her research and getting financial, like, help for it. But rather... she's being tested and, like, for whatever this illness is. Like I said, I mean, obviously I have kind of an idea, but they're, like, testing how it's doing. They're giving her the medicine she needs, and she's doing it under this implication that she's helping them because, I mean, she might be too prideful to do it if she knew that it was all intended to help her, right? It's a really sad state of affairs, no matter what exactly the incurable disease is. really sad state of affairs. They make some interesting comments regarding Risa coming to town soon. It's that time of year, which makes me think Tomatake. I mean, we know it basically had to be one of Tomatake or Takano. And I thought it always made more sense that it would be Tomatake. But it wasn't like guaranteed, but with Takano being in the room and then being like, yeah, Risa's like gonna be visiting and dropping something off, which we don't know what that something is. I don't know what exactly it is, but it's a little intriguing for sure. But I mean, that's got to be Tomatake at this point, right? Like, has to be. Because like I said, Takano was in the room. Like, if it was Takano, why would this call be happening? So that's interesting. And also there's the implication that Rika knows why Irie is trying so hard to save Satoko, and presumably that it's not literally just as simple as, I want to cure this disease, right? It's something personal with Satoko, given the sad smile he has to try to repress, right? Like, things like that. So I assume he has some personal relationship to Satoko that we don't really know. I'm kind of interested to see what that is. Kind of wish Rika had mentally spilled the beans, but we didn't get to see that, unfortunately. So I guess let's just go ahead and see what's going to happen here after that kind of depressing scene, and that gave us some potential further insight into Satoko. Let's just keep it going. Satoko was bursting with enthusiasm, so we headed to Okonomiya at full speed. We wound up waiting for Kiichi and the other club members for a long time. We got here early, but they were late. I think they were late the last time we did this too. Did it mean that this was something that was meant to happen? It's unpleasant that I can't even change the most minor of fates. I finally saw them coming toward us on their bikes. Satoko acted like she was upset, but I could tell that she was pleased to see them just the same. So we got a little Rena like on our shoulder, basically. Honestly, the first time I heard her, I briefly thought that was Rena and almost said like, bro, why are we even like hitting a question mark in the name? That's obviously Rena. Like, I was about to say that, and then I like left clicked and kind of heard the voice. I was like, no, and then Hanyu just pops right up on the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not Rena. Satoko's behavior soothes my feelings of frustration. This is why I love Satoko. If she was a small fluffy animal, I would definitely keep her in a cage. Wow. That's kind of a crazy thing to say.
おはようございますなのです。
おはようリカちゃん。サトコ、警察が来る前にケリをつけるぞ。目標は10億強奪だ。
圭一さんの話がわかりませんわ。遅くなったかな。リカちゃんたちは今来たの？今日は早く終わったのでだいぶ待ってましたですよ。
Me and Rena know that Satoko gets a checkup every Sunday at the clinic.
そりゃ悪いことしたわ。こっちはケイちゃんがなかなか来なくてさ。
Classic Keiichi. That Keiichi. So he's the reason they're always late.
圭一では仕方ありませんですよ。ニパー。
ちょい待て。俺が悪役になれば丸く収まるのかよ。
A little bit. Stop being
も
late.
ちろん。
Of course.
圭一さんでなくては務まらない大役でしたよ。
実に嫌な大役だな。こんなので丸く収まると思ったら大間違いだぞ。
Bro, I thought he was real pissed for a second. Keiichi and Satoko messed around with each other. Oh goodness. On haymakers, Satoko acted like she was crying, and Rena punched Keiichi, knocking him out cold. It was the same old situation they always got into. I can watch this sort of thing forever. It's like having a glass of cold milk after taking a hot bath.
やっぱりこれが正しい丸い収め方だよな。
It's not possible.
前歯が欠ける前に新しいオチを探した方がいいと思うけどね。
That's a valid point. We all laughed at them and finished greeting each other.
今日もみんなとっても元気なのです。元気に勝る宝はないわね。そんなこと言ってるとリカはどんどん老け込んじゃいますのです。
I think it's because mentally she is.
うるさいな。誰のせいだと思ってんのよ。 Satoko が
What?
元気なのです。
What?
うるさいな。誰のせいだと思ってんのよ。
What?
うるさいな。
What?
誰のせいだと思ってんのよ。
じ
当分甘いものを食べるのやめるわよ。
What do they like? Have the same experiences, like physical ones? So like when Rika eats, Hanyu like sort of gets to eat the same thing, right? That might explain why she was like kind of bothered by the bothered by what I think it was wine, whatever it was. Rika, whatever Rika was drinking. In the one tip, why she came out, she's like, you can't drink that. Like, Honey seemed to be getting more depressed than usual. I should stop teasing her so much.
嘘よ。冗談だからあんまりひっつかないで。ごめんなさいなのです。
Bro, this is like just having this character in our ear all the time is so different. Hanyu loves sweet treats. She especially loves cake and ice cream. Since she can't eat anything, she has to depend on me when it comes to that. In other words, whatever I eat, Hanyu can taste too. Even if Hanyu craves something, it doesn't mean anything if I don't eat it. In other words, I have total control of what she eats. That's why it's fun to tease her with saying what I'll eat and what I won't. It's almost as fun as teasing Satoko.
リカちゃんは今日もご機嫌だね。お持ち帰り。
はいはい、お持ち帰ったら犯罪だからね。
ミオン、店のおじさんが呼んでるぜ。
リカ、聞きまして。今日の部活、賞金が出るんだそうですのよ。
I remember, Miona's going to be paying 50,000 yen out of her pocket as a prize. I couldn't believe she could just afford that. Therefore, I have to assume that she has some kind of guarantee that she won't lose.
なんと、
Yeah.
5万円でしたよ。5万円。
That's a lot of money. Sadako stared at me. Oh no. She was expecting me to be surprised to hear that the prize was 50,000 yen. It's natural to be surprised after hearing that sum. I didn't react because I already knew it. Perhaps I gave the impression that I've known it for a long time.
ケイチさん、5万円なんてすごい賞金と思いませんですこと？
Didn't get the reaction
5万
she
円
wanted, so she just went somewhere else.
なんだよそれ。ケイチ王国の5年分の GNP に匹敵するぞ。
I think I remember that exact line. Maybe it's not exactly what I remember, but I swear I've heard that line before because I feel like I remember laughing at him calling it the KGGNP. Sadako said the same thing to Keiichi. She probably assumed that I wasn't listening to her, so she decided to talk to Keiichi instead.
小さなミスよ。大丈夫。
I was gonna say, constantly having to worry about things like that.
もうずっと使い切れないくらいのお醤油が買えますです。
Not the soy sauce.
なんで5万円分もお醤油を買わないといけないんですの。お醤油を買ってきてと言ってもめんどくさがる人がいるからなのですよ。
Just...
みぱー。リカって結構根に持ちますのね。
Well, I guess it would have prevented some issues if we had 50,000 yen worth of soy sauce sitting around, huh?
5万円分の醤油って一体どのくらいだよ。すげえ量になりそうだな。
Keiichi joined the conversation, which finally brought us back to our normal pace. In order to pursue a greater happiness, I need to sacrifice a smaller one. In a perfect world, Rika Furude was supposed to be surprised to hear from her best friend that the prize was 50,000 yen. But I already knew that. I knew it from my previous life, so all I could do was give her a boring reaction. I can't be surprised at the big prize of 50,000 yen. I can't give her the reaction that she expects from me. I'm losing the ability to be surprised by life. And after the continual repetition of small incidents like this, there'll be nothing left that I can find interesting. I'll have nothing to be surprised about. I'll never be impressed with anything. Eventually, I'll lose my emotions entirely. That's why I'm always trying to be careful. I make sure I act like the Rika Furude who doesn't know anything. Even though I may not be impressed, as a young girl, Rika Furude should be impressed with many things. Rika Furude is supposed to act excited when she encounters something for the first time. I try to, at least. But the more and more I try, the more I feel like Rika Furude is someone very distant.
リカ、ごめん。こういうことで感情を灰色にすると、また寿命が縮んじゃうわね。
It's so interesting to see her internal struggle with like kind of playing that character, right, of Rika that we know. That is so interesting.
世界をもっと楽しまなきゃ。
I don't mean my lifespan literally. I'm not referring to my physical lifespan, but my mental one. The more and more I repeat the same days, the more I lose. From wonder to passion, and eventually my life will become like an overplayed videotape. If I'm tired of that tape, I have a choice to close my eyes and sleep. By the time I wake up, the video should be over. But in reality, my life is not a beat-up old videotape. If I close my eyes and sleep, that would be my death. When my mental lifespan is over, Rika Furude will turn into a doll who can't even move a finger by her own will. When that happens, my pursuit of happiness will be over. I don't want that to happen. It's been at least 100 years, if not more. I've been stuck in this living hell for so long. I don't want my life to end here.
ごめん。もう大丈夫。100年程度で愚痴ってたら、あんたに笑われちゃうものね。僕はもう運命に慣れていますのですから。よし、大丈夫。私はフルでリカ。私はフルでリカ。
If I don't stay focused on being Rika Furude, I'm afraid I might end up showing my true self inside of that shell. Rika Furude is supposed to be a cute and innocent little girl, after all.
レナだったら5万円で何を買いますですか?
It is so interesting seeing things from Rika's perspective. Seeing her inner turmoil, right, and then how she has to literally put on this act, right, is just so interesting.
ケンタくん人形とか売ってもらえないのかな。フライドチキン屋さんに5万円持ってったら売ってくれないかな。その5万円で鎖を切る工具と第8車を買った方が早いと思いますです。
True.
レナさんだったら素手で鎖を引きちぎりかねませんわね。
That's also true.
違いない違いない。
ひどい。
Thus, we rejoin the typical flow of conversation naturally. Once I enter that flow, it's not hard for me to continue as Rika Furude. Being Rika Furude is like flying a kite for me. Once it's up in the air, it can stay in the sky for a while. But if something happens and it loses control, it's one heck of a challenge to get it back on track. Every time it tries to get back up in the air, the kite gets dragged on the ground and wears out. I'm exactly like that. Finally, Mion started clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. I already knew the rules. The members will be broken into 5 different groups, and each group plays a game that they choose together. I was secretly hoping that Mion would change the rules for some reason. There's nothing more boring than to already know what was going to happen.
ミオンの部活ってひょっとするとルールは違うこともあるかも。普段ならそういうこともあると思いますですが、今日はきっと何日も前から計画していたことだと思うのです。強い意志は運命になりやすい。だったわね。
Normally when we're doing club activities, Mion decides what to play at the last minute. She opens her locker and randomly decides what game to play. For that reason, our club activities are rarely repeated throughout my lives. That's why I'm never bored with them. But just as Hanyu said, today's event was something that Mion had been planning for a while. I was certain she wouldn't suggest anything spontaneously today. In that case, this won't be up to random chance. Mion had only one idea in her mind, therefore it was equivalent to destiny. Although her idea of having this event in the toy store is actually a spontaneous one. In all the lives I've repeated, there's a very low chance for this event to occur.
だからあまりそういうのは期待しない方がいいのです。
I actually don't know what direction they're going to go with this. Like, is it going to be different and that's like a sign, or it's going to be the same and it's going to kind of depress Rika?
期待してるわけじゃないわ。
Of course, I was lying just now. I was hoping that Mion would suggest a new rule for this game. If it was the same rules again, I'd be suffering for a few minutes while I listened to her instructions. Nothing is more frustrating than walking the same path over and over again. Please, Mion, please change my fate.
まずはくじ引きで5つの卓に分かれるよ。そして各卓から1人の勝者を出して。
It was the same rules after all.
ごめん。ちょっと期待した。変な期待はかえってリカを傷つけますですよ。そうね。
I mean, that's true. I don't know. I don't think it's wrong to hold them still.
何度も教えられてるのに私も学ばないわね。
Honey has taught me so many times. She taught me the trick to swimming in the flow of destiny. The flow of destiny is just like a river's. By going with the flow, I can swim the direction I want to some extent, but of course, trying to swim against the flow requires great effort. Allowing myself to drift causes the least amount of strain. Of course, some strong currents are impossible to resist, even with great effort. If I recklessly try to resist without realizing it's impossible, then I'll only wear myself out needlessly, just as if fighting river's current. So Honey taught me to read those currents, which is why I should have easily imagined that the rules would be the same the moment I learned Mion had planned today's event in advance. Yet I still wish the rules would be different, a completely wasteful action. In the end, my hopes were betrayed, only leaving my heart worn out. And things like that caused me to separate further from Rika Furude. Eventually I'll grow tired of everything, lose all interest, and die.
抗えない運命は受け入れる。リカなら運命の流れを読むことができますですよ。そうよね。ただでさえ短い残りの寿命。大事にしないとね。
I sighed and pretended as though I was listening to what Mion was explaining.
どうしたんだリカちゃん、退屈なのか？
Keiji surprised me all of a sudden.
退屈って僕がですか？
This had never happened before, so I thought he was talking to someone else. But it seemed like Keiichi really was talking to me.
うん。なんか今朝は会ってからずっと退屈そうな顔をしてるからさ。ひょっとして早起きしすぎて寝不足なのか？
前に同じ部活をやったことがあるので、またなのかと思っただけなのです。
No one would understand what I mean anyway, but Keiichi might. And so I told him how I honestly felt.
え？なんだそうなのか？なんだミオンめ。ま、俺は初めての参加だから十分楽しみだけどな。
I don't think this happened in Chapter 2. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Keiichi inadvertently changing even some small details is something. I envied him for feeling that way. I sighed, knowing that I never will.
確かに、すでに知ってる説明を延々と繰り返されると苦痛な時ってあるよな。俺も昔、塾で学校のだいぶ先まで習っててさ、遅れて習う学校が苦痛だったことがあるよ。
Keiichi didn't understand me, but I'm glad that at least he understood how frustrating it was to repeat the same situation.
そうなのです。僕も学校は特に苦痛なのですよ。
え？本当かよ。いつも楽しそうにしてるじゃないかよ。
Rika Furude is supposed to be happy at school. That's why I act that way.
すでに知っていることを延々と聞き続けなければならないのは拷問以外の何者でもないと思いますのです。
It's easy for me to change what Satoko cooks for dinner. I can simply volunteer to cook instead of her. But I can't change what the teacher teaches at school every day. I have no choice but to be quiet and listen to her lecture.
まあ授業はどうしようもないよな。俺はそこを塾で習ってますから、その次をやってくださいなんて名前聞いたらいろいろと怒られるもんな。でもこいつは違うぜ。遊びじゃないか。
遊びではありますが決まってるのですよ。
わかんねえぜ。だって5択に分かれるのはくじ引きだそうじゃないか。
I feel like there's gonna be a change. Like one of them is gonna end up at a table with someone else this time. Like
しかもそれぞれの択で何のゲームをやるかは任意に決めることになってる。今日どんなゲームで戦わされてどんな展開で盛り上がるかなんか全然想像がつかねえぜ。
予想はつきますですよ。
そんなことねえよ。
Keiichi smiled as he contradicted me. That smile seemed so ignorant to me.
くじ引きで5択に分かれますですが部活メンバーはきれいに5択に分かれますです。圭一はあそこ、僕はそこの択なのです。そして僕は魚釣りのゲームをすることになります。圭一はすごろくの100億長者ゲームなのです。
I don't know how, but last time we were broken into 5 separate groups. It couldn't have been a coincidence. I'm sure Mion did something to ensure it would end up like that. I'm 100% sure. As for the games we play, I'm not totally sure, but if each member in the group follows the same thinking patterns, they'll probably end up making the same choices. If you roll dice many times, you begin to approach the average. One person's spontaneous act can be random, but multiple people's thoughts can be averaged out for the most part. The more people that are involved, the more difficult it is to alter the path of fate. That's why I'm pretty sure that we'll end up playing the same games. Keiichi seems surprised to hear my prediction.
なんだよそれ。予言か？よくそこまで言い切れるじゃねえか。
運命とはそういうものなのです。
へへ。運命なんて言われるとよ、 意地でも抗ってみたくなるのが男ってもんだよな。
That's exactly the right thing to say. He smiled at me again. I knew that he was just smiling without reason, but I felt a small hope from him. After all, Keiichi really did shatter fate before. That was just a miracle that happened in my previous life. I couldn't expect him to do the same thing in this one. Otherwise, I would be worn down by my high expectations again.
はい、くじ引きはこの箱の中から1枚引いて決めよう。まず部活メンバーからね。
Mio drew first, then Satoko followed. The results were the same as the last time.
初戦で部活メンバーとは当たりたくねえな。もしリカちゃんと当たったらごめんよ。
当たりませんですよ。圭一の卓はあそこ。僕の卓はそこなのです。
そううまくいってたまるかよ。
I'm kind of curious if what the result's gonna be. If it's gonna be the same as always. Oh, she was right. Keiichi looked upset.
ね、僕の予言は外れないのです。
5択の一つってことは 20% だもんな。適当に言ったってそれだけの確率で当たるってことさ。
Keiichi told me that it was just a coincidence.
なら、僕のくじも予想通りだったなら、何%の確率になりますですか
？20% の 20% だから4% だな。さすがにこの確率だったら信じてもいいぜ。
Keiichi grinned at me, believing such a chance was impossible.
さあ、最後はリカちゃんだよ。
Mion handed me the box of slips. No matter what I did, I'd be getting that table. There was a reason behind it. Mion was doing something to make sure that we all get a different table. I thought about why Mion would do that, and with the information I've gathered about Mion over many years, I could see her reasoning.
多分、ミオンは部活のメンバーの誰かが1回戦で負けてしまったら気の毒だと思っているのでしょう。
Yeah.
そうね。同じ卓に部活メンバーがぶつかり合ったら、どちらかのメンバーは必ず敗退することになる。
If everyone was in a different group, we'd all have a chance to move on to the second stage. That's why she was controlling this draw. I put my hand inside of the box. I could feel several folded pieces of paper inside it, but if you thought for a moment, it was odd. No matter which one I chose, I'd never get any other table.
どういう仕掛けでリカを最後の卓へ送るようにしているのですか？
Good question.
さあ、それはミオンに聞かないとわからないわね。でも一つ言えるのは、多分この箱の中のどれを引いても
I hope she's
あ
wrong.
の卓になると書いてあるはず。
Ah, I got it.
その箱の中には今、同じくじしか入っていない？
そういうことになるわね。多分ミオンの持つこの箱は何か細工がしてあるんでしょうね。
Yeah, probably. There's probably a box for a magic show or something. There could be some kind of gimmick inside the box, and she can switch what's inside of it. Depending on who's drawing the paper, she'd change out the lots and control the result. I didn't know exactly how, but I was sure she was doing something. I didn't even need to know how she was doing it. The most important thing was why.
どれにしようか迷いますです。
さあさあ、どれを選んでも運命は一緒だよ。
I mean, that's literally true. She was admitting it herself. I was certain then. Based on what I felt inside, there were less than 10 pieces of paper inside of this box. In other words, there were hidden pieces of paper that I couldn't touch somewhere inside the box. I smiled at Mion as I figured out her trick, but she had no clue why I was smiling.
では、これなのです。
はいよ。どれどれ？おお！
Is it different?
すごいね。
No.
部活メンバーが全員きれいに分かれたよ。
It's exactly what she expected. Mion behaved as though this was news to her. She's such an actress. The other contestants made a dissatisfied noise. They'd have to face a club member no matter which table they got. Keiichi was surprised too, and not only because we were divided.
ね、運命は決まっていることなのです。
I smiled at him in return. Keiichi was in denial for a moment, but then he smiled back at me.
25分の1の確率で当てるとはやるじゃねえか。
It was not. I predicted that Mion and Satoko would be at a different table, so the possibility was even lower than that. Keiichi understood that, but normal people like him can't understand that meaning of fate. That's why he put it off as a coincidence. But Keiichi, what if my prediction is right about what game you'll be playing? The possibility will be 1 in billions. There are a lot of games in this store. What if that prediction is right too? Will he still believe it's just a coincidence? I stayed quiet in my seat and waited to see what game my group was going to decide on. They were going to choose the fishing game. I can't expect them to choose anything other than that.
期待して裏切られたらまた辛くなるものね。
I feel like there's gonna be a small change somewhere. But I don't know, maybe I'm falling into the trap. One of the boys stood up. He walked toward the shelf full of games and picked up one box. He lifted the box above his head and turned around so he could show it to us. I closed my eyes as he did so, but I could still hear what he was saying.
見ろよ、これこれ。懐かしいよな。これにしねえか。ああ、知ってるよそれ。魚がくるくる回って口をパクパクさせるのを釣るやつだろ。
I could taste the bitter chemicals from my brain in my mouth. I clenched my lips and tried to endure the numbing feeling.
ごめん、今日は体調が悪いのかしらね。なぜかうまく受け流せないわ。
It wasn't because I wasn't feeling well, of course. It was because of my emotions. Our powers are getting weaker, and we can only rewind about 2 weeks of our lives. I was feeling that the end was near for us. In order for me to change my tragic fate, I need more time to prepare. I can only go back 2 weeks. That means my power to resist my fate has been significantly weakened. Even if I've become as weak as a small leaf in the river, I should be able to do something in order to change my path. But if I can only go back to the point where I'm getting ready to be swallowed into the whirlpool, there's no chance for me to escape it. I lived for so long, believing that I could eventually escape my fate and survive. I believed that I had a chance in every moment of every life I lived. But there are limits to those chances. There's so many limits in my repeated lives, and perhaps this might be my last chance. That may be why I'm feeling so restless.
ダメです、リカ。難しく考えれば考えるほど心に良くないのです。わかってるわよ。ちょっと黙ってて。
My brain was numb, as if surrounded by a gray mist. I was inside the crowded toy store, but felt very far away from everyone else. The tighter I closed my eyes and the harder I clenched my teeth, the emptier my head became. No, 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 no.
リカ、リカ、しっかり。
She is not doing well. As I tried to focus, I became conscious again. Anu looked at me with concern. She's slowly drifting away. I tend to lose my mind easily right after coming back from death. I usually have more time to relax and get used to my new life. I have no time for that now. The Watanagashi festival is only 2 weeks away. I can't just relax and wait for myself to get used to things. Don't be a wimp, Rika. Don't be a wimp. Fight against fate. But even if I do, that fate always betrays me and I grieve. What if I did the opposite? What if I didn't fight against fate? A few weeks after the Watanagashi Festival of 1983, I will die because I'm fated to do so. Fight, don't fight. 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 As I repeat the same words, they started to lose all meaning. I felt like I was chanting something. I bit my tongue in my mind and forced myself to stop thinking about it. I was calming down a little bit. When I opened my eyes, I saw the fishing game right in front of me as well as my pole. Someone placed it there while I had my eyes closed. It was as if I was seeing the immovable reality of fate right in front of me. It felt like a final verdict to me. What do you think, Heichi? This is what fate is all about. Do I want to earn his agreement or his sympathy? I stood up and walked towards Keiichi's table. His group couldn't decide on a game, so the store owner was deciding for them. Just like the last time, the store owner will pick the game of life.
やっぱり相手の提案するゲームじゃ不利だもんな。なんて言って互いの提案を蹴り合うもんだからちっとも決まりゃしねえんだ。リカちゃんの方は決まったのか？
見ればわかりますですよ。
He looked at my table and saw the fishing game there. Keiichi was surprised to see that my prediction was right again. He also remembered that I predicted his game too.
じゃあマスターはリカちゃんの予言した100億長者ゲームを持ってくるっていうのかよ。
僕は時々予言もできますのですよ。
That's one way to put it.
リパ
ー。本当かよおい。よしよし。じゃあマスターが本当に100億長者ゲームを持ってきたなら信じてやるぜ。
そうです。圭一たちは100億長者ゲームで戦うことになりますです。
よしよし。そこまで言うなら勝負しようじゃねえか。あ、マスターを買収してあるなんてのはなしだぞ。
マスターが売れ残りのゲームを持ってこようと強く思っているなら必然の結果になりますのです。
I remember it was covered by dust when he gave it to them last time. Since we had to buy the game if we lost, he was trying to sell products he had a surplus of. Therefore, he won't be choosing any game at random. He'll be looking for one with bad sales, with a strong will to do so. That will of his is going to make the pull of fate all the stronger. In that sense, there's no guarantee that he'd be choosing the game of life specifically. He might choose something else that's also overstocked. The owner finally reappeared with a box covered in dust.
ね、言った通りなのですよ。
He has a game of life box in his hands. The part of me that hoped it wouldn't be the game of life tasted bitterness at the betrayal, but the cynical part of me that expected it to happen found it amusing in a way. I felt like my personality was twisting more and more.
マスター、どうしてそのゲームを選んだんです？
んいやいや、本当に気まぐれだよ。倉庫の在庫から適当に探し出したのさ。決して売れ残りの一番傷んだやつを持ってきたわけじゃないんだよ。
When he heard that the owner chose the game randomly, Keiichi shrugged his shoulders in confusion. That must be his way of surrendering.
なあ、リカちゃん。これって、マジの予言なのか？
みぱ
いやさ、村のお年寄りに、リカちゃんはお社様の生まれ変わりで、神通力があるって力説されたことがあるんだよ。
They don't know the half of it.
未来の予言とかができて、ものすごい的中率だとかなんとか。
Never mind, they know the half of it.
それって、本当なのか？
I was surprised that Keiichi actually believed the superstitious stories he heard from the elderly villagers.
決まっている運命を読むだけなのです。もっと言えば、前に一度見てきた世界なのですから。
チェックソここまで当てられちゃそんなバカなとも言えやしない。
Keiichi seemed like he was just fooling around. He probably only thinks I'm goofing around and acting haughty because my random predictions all came true. Here it is again, bro. I'm telling you, this author loves that word. I had hope for him. I thought the owner might bring a different game because Keiichi once had the power to change fate. But that didn't happen. I'm not surprised, but I felt betrayed again. Huh. It hurts.
賭けは僕の勝ちなのですよ。
I speak to Keiichi sarcastically. I wanted him to understand that no one can change the path of fate. However, Keiichi did nothing but smile. He's gonna do something.
調子に乗るなよ、リカちゃん。運命を読めるなんていい加減なことを言っちゃいけないぜ。男にとって宿命と運命という言葉はもっともっと尊くて熱い意味がこもってるんだ。そんなやすやすと読めるようなもんじゃねえ。
I had no idea what he was trying to say, but he made me nervous. It wasn't a scary feeling. No, it was closer to hope.
さっきリカちゃんはマスターが100億長者ゲームを持ってくることを運命だと言った。偶然であったとしても的中したのだからリカちゃんが正しいと言わざるを得ないさ。でもな、こうも言ったよな。
何ですか？
俺が100億長者ゲームで戦うことも運命だってな。
He's gonna convince someone to swap with him. Yes, it was indeed his fate. Fate can change sometimes with uncertainty and time. Or watch him just give up. If he just gives up, that would be crazy. But the possibility that it would change in the situation was very slight. I doubted that anything would turn out differently.
なら、その運命とやらを俺がぶち壊してやろうじゃないか。
Bro thinks he's Chrom from Fire Emblem. Keiichi stood up in a hurry. Then he started talking to Tomita and Okamura, his group members.
すまん、俺100億長者ゲームは持ってるんだよ。だからルールの裏の裏まで知り尽くしてる。
そうなんですか？
Dude, honestly, it's kind of funny. I've always liked Keiichi, but like the more I see of him in chapters that, like in the answer arc, I guess is the better way to put it. The more I've seen of him in the answer arcs, the more I like him. Like, his kind of like seeing his determination now. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say chapter 1 leaves a bad impression per se. Like 1 and 2 to a degree. I don't want to say they leave a bad impression, but. They definitely don't tell the whole story of his determination and how he wants to, like, I don't know. Like, obviously for him, he's, like, determined to find that best result. I feel like he has every bit of determination as Rika. He just doesn't know what's happening, right? Like, and he's willing to show it through a small act like this. He's changing fate. Your prediction is wrong, right? Like,
だからこのセレクトはフェアじゃないよな。マスター、申し訳ないんですけど、100億長者ゲームの隣に置いてあった他のゲームに変えてもらえませんか？
そうかい？わかったよ。じゃあ他のを持ってこよ
う。The owner picked up the game of life again and took it back into storage. As I remained there in shock, he returned with a game called Pop-Up Pirate.
これならどうかな？
ああ、あの樽にナイフを刺すゲームですよね。
どうだよ二人とも。これならフェアだろ？
そうですね。ルールもわかりやすいし。
It's such a small gesture, but it's so cool to see, and I feel like it's gotta almost instill a little bit of hope in Rika, like that determination he has, right? That fate can be broken, you can change fate and destiny, right? Like, it just shows right there in his eyes, if there's fate and destiny, and it can only be fate and destiny if you know about it. It's only fate if you don't do anything about it, right? Like, you can change it, right? Is exactly what I'm saying, right? If you know, you can change it. And I feel like that's gotta instill some kind of hope in Rika.
それにしましょ
う。じゃあ決まり。俺たちの卓はこれで勝負だ。
Keiichi winked at me as I stood there with my mouth open. It looked like he had just forcefully changed my prediction, but for me, it's not that simple. It was supposed to be fate. That's why the owner brought the game of life to their table. They were supposed to play that game. That's what happened the last time. That's what was supposed to happen. But he just changed that fate in front of my eyes like it was nothing. It's as if someone asked me to stand an egg on its end. And as I struggled to do so, Keiichi forcefully cracked the egg and made it stand up in front of me. I should have had a far greater power than Keiichi, but why was I feeling so weak? Was it because I wasn't trying to fight against fate so I wouldn't get hurt? Because I was going with the flow without trying too hard? What was I thinking?
リカちゃんさ、さっきすっげえつまらなさそうな顔してたよな。
Bro got you good. He got you good.
それってあれだろ？魚釣りゲームじゃ嫌だなって不安が的中しちゃってふてくされてたんだろ？
そうね。今さら隠さない。
じゃあ簡単じゃないか。
So I'm a witch who's been living for more than 100 years. So I thought I was better than everyone, just because I can see the paths of fate. That's stupid. I really am stupid. Keiichi tapped me on the back. He was urging me to return to my table. The sensation of his touch filled up my heart with emotion. I wasn't going to stand by idly anymore. I thought I couldn't cheat fate. I thought 2 weeks wasn't enough. But Keiichi just defied his fate in a matter of 5 minutes.
僕は魚釣りゲームはお魚さんがかわいそうだと思いますので、他のゲームにしたいのですよ。
The other people at my table looked at me with confused expressions. Their reactions were scaring me. Right at that moment, I could really feel that I was facing the impenetrable wall of fate. Even so, I had nothing to be scared of.
そっか。じゃあ、リカちゃんは何がいい？リカちゃんの提案する他のゲームでいいよ。
They accepted my suggestion and gave up on the fishing game so easily. That's right, I used to be much more aggressive before, but I became so tired and bitter and mean. I gave in to fate, but I'm not going to yield anymore. Keiichi taught me that. He didn't have any memories from his previous life, but Keiichi was still Keiichi. He'd never give in to fate.
久しぶりに運命と戦おうという気力が充実するのを感じるわ。
That's a Keiichi classic, like doing something like that. Like, I feel like, I don't want to say accidentally, but giving someone the motivation like that, right? Like, moving someone like that without, he probably doesn't even know the impact of what he just did, right? Like,
やる気があればものの5分でだって運命は変えられる。それが2週間もあるんだもの。今回はもっともっと運命と戦ってみせる。頑張りましょうなのです。
in contrast to my motivation, Hani was wearing a sad expression. Like she'd seen this before, and like, known the end result, I suppose, you know? This is where Keiichi locks in, yeah.
そっか、おじさんの店の手伝いってんじゃ仕方ねえな。
ささやかなお店だけどね。でもさ、 特売やれば主婦が殺到するの常識で読めないのかね。店員足りないのに卵1パックを一人様1点限り10円なんてやるな。
It's just the voice actor for the Sonozaki twins is so good. As we were getting ready to move on to the next stage, Mio got a call from work. Is this when the bear, or like this stuffed animal, or no, the doll, not stuffed animal, the doll thing happens? I wonder if Rika's gonna step in to prevent the whole situation, right? If she knows, I don't know if she really understands. I don't know if she was told by Shion exactly, like the whole the doll started everything, right? I don't know if she got that spiel, right? I don't even really is it? I'm trying to remember the validity of that and if that's indirectly true. I think it's indirectly true, right? Because isn't part of the reason Shion snapped in the first place and got involved was because of the whole doll thing? Mion went to her. Little rusty. I think that's what happened. I'll have to review. I might be wrong on that, but I think changing this would change that outcome, right? As we were getting ready to move on to the next stage, Mion got a call from work. This was fated to happen too. I was still feeling depressed. I would have been disgusted with this situation, but after learning what it felt like to change fate, I was in a good mood. Keiichi and Mion seemed like they kept regretting that they were unable to settle the match. They really are such good friends.
本当にあの二人は仲がいいね。
I mean, bare minimum, she remembers the rift it causes between them, probably, right?
仲良しさんすぎてレナは焼いちゃうよ。はお。うちのクラスにはケイイチさんと近い年の男子がいませんものね。ケイイチさんにはちょうどいい男友達の感覚なんじゃありませんの？それでもみーちゃんは女の子なんだよ。
That's kind of funny. But it doesn't really help.
男の子にはなれないよ。
Yeah. She doesn't want to
そ
be
れは
that.
分かってますけど、こうしていると仲のいい男子同士にしか見えませんわね。
Ren and Sadako enjoyed the lingering excitement of the day as they watched Mion and Keiichi happily goof off. The next moment, the owner came out from the store.
みんな、今日は本当にありがとう。おかげでイベントは大盛り上がりだったよ。
He was holding 4 paper bags in his hands. I remember, he gave us gifts as a reward for today. I think they were dolls inside.
大したものじゃないけど、これ今日のおだちんに。
あ、吉郎おじさん、私にはないの？おだちん。
He was giving them only to us, and Mion didn't get anything because she's a family member. That's what happened last time, too.
あらあらあら、可愛いのが出てきましたわよ。
Come on, Rika, you gotta do something about this, surely. Satoko let out a cheer of joy as she saw a cute doll inside of her bag. Rena reacted the same way.
わあ、これかわいい。お持ち帰りしていいの？本当に？
ってことは俺のもかな。お、なんだかやたら可愛いのが出てきたぞ。
Keiichi got a gorgeous, expensive-looking doll. It was by far the best one. It was adorable even to my eyes. Satoko, Rena, and Mion were feeling the same way.
ケイちゃんには一番似合わないのが出てきちゃったね。
Mion started making fun of him right away. She was only saying that because she was jealous that Keiichi got a doll that she really wanted.
なんつうのか、プリティっていうか、キュートっていうか、可愛いのは認めるんだが、着せ替え人形はちょっとな。
ケイちゃんが持ってたら確実に明日から変態扱いだね。
Might as well give it to Mion, I guess. Mion just can't be honest with herself. It was obvious that she was just trying to make him give up the doll so she could have it herself. She should just admit that and ask Keiichi for it. But that's the cute side of Mion. I bet Keiichi can never understand that. Keiichi can't keep the doll after receiving that much bullying from Mion. He was thinking about who he should give it to. He probably didn't want to give it to Mion. Time froze for a moment. Hanyu whispers something in my ear.
リカ、覚えていますですか？
Yes.
ええ。
I didn't even get the choice to The mod menu didn't even give me the like guarantee the correct choices thing. I mean, I'd be willing to bet like a pretty large amount that it's advise him on who he should give the doll to, but I don't know that for sure. Maybe like this is literally like a fate changes by itself kind of thing, right? I thought that was in here somewhere. Really thought that was in here somewhere, and I don't see it. So we're gonna hope that it's advise him on who he should give it to. I remembered that Keiichi's insensitive decisions eventually caused a fatal ending. That was fate. Keiichi was internally thinking that he should give the doll to Mion. She was the only one who didn't get anything, so it would be natural for him to give it to her. But the hesitation he was feeling was because Mion was such a close friend to him. He'd been treating Mion as if she was a male friend, but it would be weird to give a doll to another boy. He was afraid that if he gave the doll to Mion, he would start looking at her as a girl from that point onward. He wanted to continue his friendship with Mion without thinking about their difference in gender. He didn't want to ruin the relationship they had at that moment. That's why he couldn't give the doll to Mion. Even though she was the only one without a doll, he felt so hesitant. Of course, that was only how he felt. Mion didn't agree. In actuality, she wished he would treat her more like a girl. I walked closer to Keiichi so I could talk to him. If Mion heard me telling Keiichi to give her the doll, she would resist taking it. I had to make sure that no one but Keiichi could hear me. I also had to make this very quick. I poked Keiichi in the back.
Huh?
Keiichi, the person who really wants that doll is the one who's bullying you the most about it. I was going to say that, but Keiichi opened his mouth first, even before I could say anything to him.
Ah, わかってるって。
I hadn't said anything to him yet, but Keiichi told me that he knew. I felt confused, not knowing what he had just meant. He turned around to face Mion, smiling mischievously.
ミオン、俺が持ってたら変態扱いなら、こりゃ誰が持ってりゃ変態扱いにならないんだ
I was gonna tease her about it.
ん
そんなことは知らないよ。まあお人形なんて男の子の持つものじゃないよねって言っただけだしさ。
ほう。じゃあお前が持てば万事解決じゃないか。ほれ。
Man. This is so nice to see. I mean, like, kind of righting that wrong. Like, obviously it helps their relationship out. Mion is obviously happy for this. Fate has changed. Like, everyone wins here, except, like, maybe Rena, who also wanted the doll. But Keiichi tossed the doll to Mion as if passing her a basketball, as if forcing her to carry his bag or something. Mion's face quickly turned red. Feeling shy, Keiichi turned away from her. That was surprising. He got my message just by getting a tap on his back. Was Keiichi always that smart? I really love that CG. Just one tap was all it took. I don't think he would have done the same in a previous life. This is just a small incident, but this world is definitely different from the previous one. Or could it be? Perhaps he would have given that doll to Mion even if I didn't poke him in the back. I am actually kind of curious about that.
以前の世界の記憶を受け継いでいる。まさか。
I wonder if directly asking and the whole fate thing caused him to have them.
そんなことあるわけがないのです。
I know for a fact that he doesn't have those memories, but there might be something imperceptible somewhere inside his heart. He might remember some of the regrets he felt in the previous worlds. That's why he strongly felt he should be giving that doll to Mion this time. After repeating so many lives, I'm the only one who can even notice this slight growth of his. But I see it. It's clearly visible to me. Maybe that's why they didn't give me the chance to, like, have the right choices, because it didn't matter what we did. Keiichi did grow. Mion, having turned red, insisted that the cute doll would be a much better fit for Rena. Her attitude made it clear that she really wanted the doll, but couldn't be honest about it.
だからさ、おじさん、こういう可愛いお人形はさ、ちゃんとした可愛い女の子に渡した方が似合うと思うんだよね。
She's so embarrassed about this.
私みたいな男女に渡してもほら、人形の方が可哀想っていうか、
the deserve word over something like that. No. Wrong. It's one of my least favorite words in a lot of ways, right? Is if someone deserves something like nice like that, you know?
欲しいくせに顔に書いてあるじゃねえかよ。
Bro, you better chill out teasing her or she really will give it away.
違う、書いてなんかないよ。嘘つき、意地悪。
I do love their rapport. Mia shook her head with an embarrassed look, pretending she wasn't interested in the doll. Everyone here knew that she wanted it. We all looked at Mion with big smiles on our faces.
おいおい、別に女の子じゃないと人形は渡せないとか、こいつは俺と今日の部活で熱い睨み合いをしてくれた親友への贈り物なんだぜ。
そうなの？ケイちゃんは男の子の友達にも人形を渡すわけ？
まあ確かに選べる範囲があるならわざわざ人形は選ばねえな。でもよ、男の世界じゃ相手に悪意がない限り相手の気持ちなんだからよ。変に断られるとかえって男気がないよな。
じゃあ女の子でなくても人形を受け取ってもいいんだ。
I was about to say he low-key might have fumbled, but he's convincing her to take the doll. Everyone thought Mion's reaction was hilarious. Rena couldn't stop chuckling. Satoko and I burst out laughing too. Mion, having realized she was being laughed at, got even more embarrassed.
男が仲間に送ったもんだぜ。大事にしなかったら承知しないぞ。
うん。おじさんがこの人形が欲しいからもらうんじゃないよ。
Right.
ケイちゃんが仲間に送るって言ったから、ケイちゃんの顔を立てるために受け取るんだからね。
It's the only reason. So true. Hanyu was cracking up too. She was laughing in a loud voice, knowing that no one could hear her anyway. Was this really a good way to resolve the problem? I thought that Mion's issue in the previous life was that she wanted Keiichi to treat her like a girl. She got the doll, but Keiichi still wasn't treating her that way. Still, Mion looked very happy. Maybe it wasn't a big deal after all. That's why I said, I feel like he low-key fumbled at the end. I'm sure that Mion will take that doll with her to bed tonight. She'll kiss it goodnight, too. I could bet on that. It was written all over her face.
ようやく受け取ってくれたぜ。人形1個渡すのに手間のかかるやつだぜ。
Keiichi turns around to face us, smiling bitterly.
ケイチくん100点満点かな。僕もそう思いますです。あの意地っ張りのミオンによくお人形を渡せましたです。ミオンさんも笑っちゃいますわね。
Yeah, she was.
欲しいってあんなに顔に書いてあるのに痩せ我慢なんかしちゃって。
違いねえな。
こらおじさんの陰口を言ってるでしょ。こら
みーちゃん、バイト急がなくていいの？遅刻しちゃうよ。
もう覚えてなよ。
Bro, it is nice to see the more fun moments of this game. Even in the crazy situations we find ourselves in as we get further and further in the game, they always find a way to keep the chapters kind of lively. Mion seemed like she wanted to stay longer, but after looking at her watch, she started heading to work. Everyone was wearing smiles on their faces. Today was such a fun day. Everyone had lots of fun, and no one was hurt. I've repeated the same day so many times before, but this time, something was different. It's like I rolled a die and got a 6, and then I rolled it again and got a 6 again. I don't know if this was just a lucky coincidence or if it was meant to be. It's as if the god of fate is celebrating my motivation to fight against him. That was a really nice chapter, right? Seeing her get that motivation back because of Keiichi, right? I loved to see that. Alright, so let's go ahead and view the tip. Good times with a Yashiro-sama. I was watching TV with Satoko and Hanyu after eating dinner. It was a variety show, and the performers were making the audience laugh. We were laughing too.
ざまあないでございますわね。はうはうはう。でも、とっても痛そう
While the three of us were enjoying ourselves, in reality there was only Satoko and me in the room. I'm the only one who can see Hanyu. Satoko can't see her at all. Hanyu responds every time Satoko says anything. Satoko can't hear her, but Hanyu still responds to her when she's in a good mood. It's like she's answering a question asked on TV. You could even compare it to playing house. She started playing this game with other people because she can't communicate with anyone else but me. Hanyu always attends our club meetings and has a good time there too. If she could communicate with my other friends, she would have been a good match for us. I don't want to hurt her feelings by thinking about that. If the story of the miracle written in the old scriptures is true, if it's really Hanyu who performed it, she's someone who had tremendous power long ago. Okay. So Hanyu is the original Oyashiro-sama. I'm almost positive I had suggested exactly that. Right, that Hanyu was in fact the older of the two. I think they suggested as much at some point. I don't remember exactly where, but I'm pretty sure this was suggested at some point, and therefore I was like, she might just be Oyashiro-sama, right? The other entity, who I didn't know was Hanyu at the time. But now she doesn't have any spiritual power, and I'm the only one who can even see her. Hanyu has never told me how she lost her power. I just have to assume that her spiritual power diminished over time. There's a legend of the Furude family that says that Oyashiro-sama will be reborn if a girl is born to the family 7 generations in a row. With my birth, Hanyu was finally able to communicate with a human for the first time in centuries. Does that mean that Oyashiro-sama has returned? The villager's image of Oyashiro-sama doesn't quite match up with that of Hanyu. Especially when I see her lying on her belly and watching TV with Satoko. So that's interesting. I mean, they make it clear that that Hanyu is probably Oyashiro-sama. Which, like I said, was something I already felt pretty sure of, but it's interesting to see. But also that Oyashiro-sama has lost a lot of their spiritual power, which might explain why they're struggling so much to actually do what they need to do. Right? Which is really interesting. But it makes sense. Also, just in general, seeing like Hanyu kind of playing house, as Rika described it, and talking to people and interacting with people who can't see her, hear her, kind of depressing. It almost makes you want Hanyu to get a happy ending as well, right? Gets a mortal form somehow along with Rika, right? And then they all get that happy ever after. It'd be really interesting. Let's go ahead and talk about this episode as a whole. Let's go ahead and save the game. This was a fascinating episode. It's the start was kind of wild, right? It starts with almost like an information dump, like, hey, if you haven't picked up on these things by now, you need to know these. This is the 3 things Rika's really noticed are the core rules of every world line or fragment, rather, that she's experienced. And she's been through a bunch of them, and the 3 rules, you got rule X, somebody will be driven by fear and paranoia to violent acts. Who it is and what the acts aren't the same, and it's not really important, but it will always happen with someone, right? They will do great violence. You got rule Y, which is that there are going to be some constants, right? Specifically in the death of Rika about halfway through June of 1983, and the deaths of Tomatake and the death of Takano. Rika is fully believed that Takano dies, so maybe she does. I don't know. I don't think Rika's not an omniscient being, right? She's not omniscient. She has a lot of experience in a lot of different worlds, and she's accumulated a lot of information that other people don't know or wouldn't have the chance to know, or she certainly shouldn't know in that world. But it does not mean she is omniscient, right? If she was omniscient, the problem would be solved, right? So Rika not believing something to be true does not mean it is not true, right? I do want to say that, right? Just because Rika does not seem to believe Takano is faking her death in some way, or is the ringleader, does not mean that Takano is not the ringleader. I think she also kind of threw in the rule Y, the way that inadvertently Oishi kind of always instigates. And I threw more in with rule Z, but I guess kind of both. Rule Z was basically that idea that the curse killings aren't they don't necessarily have to be curse killings. It's this fear of the Sonozaki family that really influences them, right? And that because they take credit for everything, they want to put on that bravado, right? Or they want people to believe they're powerful and they run everything. So they claim everything. So everyone believes it's them. So naturally, people assume the curse killings is them, but it might just be the environment. Of once a year, people kill, and that environment is what causes people to kill. That belief that something will happen causes someone to be like, well, it'll be me this year, right? You know? That's kind of the idea of Rule Z, and that Takano and Oishi kind of push this by driving that suspicion of the Sonozakis and the curse killings and whatnot. And if you look at it, it's kind of true every time, right? Every time this happens, the curse killings, it's always someone who's had a lot of interaction with those two people. So that makes sense. And these are the three rules Rika like Constance she sees within the fragments. And we kind of get this information, and then the information that she is weakening, like Rika is, as well as Hanyu. And she's kind of dropped straight into a new fragment, new life. Disoriented at first. We see Hanyu for the first time, which is obviously kind of crazy that there's just been this entity that we now have strong evidence that it's Oyashiro-sama. We see this entity that only Rika can see. We've never seen this before, so that's very interesting. And that's more or less the first chapter. And then after that, we get two major scenes. The first one is at the doctor, where we see Satoko. What kind of we see some stuff going on with her. She has some kind of incurable disease that she'll never recover from. That's what the word incurable means. And she'll always be in critical condition, and she needs constant checkups and constant vaccinations as a result. And she was there for one of those trips. She believes that she is there helping with research and that everything's going all right, and she doesn't seem to truly understand what's going on with her, which is kind of depressing. She believes she's there for research and earning money for doing so, when in reality they're there trying to help cure her and manage her symptoms. A lot of this information is shared with Rika, of course, but not with Satoko. And like I said, that is kind of depressing. We don't know exactly what it is. My theory is that it is whatever the craziness is, but in a more permanent form. It might not be that. It could be something else, for sure. But this deep in the game, I assume that they're not going to introduce a brand new concept like that, if that makes sense. So I kind of assume it's the same thing, especially because it has those syringes, and it would explain why Rika has access to those syringes, right? It would explain why in Chapter 3, Satoko seems to go crazy. Maybe she didn't have access to those shots anymore because of her uncle, right? Not allowing her to visit. I'm almost tempted to go look at Chapter 3 and see if maybe the symptoms of her going crazy really start after Sunday, right? Maybe she didn't get to go for her weekly checkup because of the uncle, and as a result, she kind of goes crazy. I don't know. That might make sense. It's interesting to think about, at least. But that's my assumption on what it is, which is, like you said, it's a depressing state of affairs for Satoko. Why is everything in her life so depressing? Right? Why can't she just get a win? I don't know. She just can never just get a win, I feel. Like, everything with her has to be so depressing. It really is quite tragic. But also, I think something else that's really important that I didn't discuss here, that I've mentioned once or twice now, is the involvement of a certain Risa. who is almost certainly Tomatake in my opinion, because we've heard this name before, and it was like they got Risa too shortly after Irie heard about the death of Tomatake and Takano. And with Takano in the room, when he hears that Risa is on the way, the only assumption is that it's, Tomatake. What he has to deliver? I don't know. He has to deliver something important. And it's that time of year. I really could not tell you what it is. Maybe it's more of the vaccine? I don't know. I really don't. We'll find out exactly what it is at some point, I would assume. But that's another interesting implication, is we might finally get to see about a bit of the truth of Tomatake's backstory, which would be really interesting, given the way he gets glossed over every chapter, right? It's just like, hey, he's here. Hey, he seems like a kind of friendly guy. There's some suspicious things about him, but oh, he's dead. Bye, he's gone with the chapter, right? He's been a plot device so far, so it'd be interesting if we get to really see his backstory. It seems like there is a story there, right? So I'm looking forward to that. The next scene, and this is, I thought it was a great scene. It was the toy store scene again. And what made this scene so interesting was Rika was really like, she looked visibly bored, and she kind of told Keiichi, and she's had hope that Keiichi would be able to solve things, right? She's had that hope. But she's never been able to do anything with that, if that makes sense. She's never been able to do anything with that. It's more like, I don't know why I said that. I didn't really mean that. It's more like Hanyu keeps trying to tell her, don't get your hopes up. Like, it's not gonna work, right? Like, don't get your hopes up. Stay adrift along the flow, like the river's flow of destiny, right? Don't fight against it. It'll only bring you more pain. And she keeps trying to fight against it in small ways, but mostly she drifts, right? And eventually she just straight up tells Keiichi, like, hey, I know exactly what's about to happen. And she predicts the games they're going to play, the tables they're going to sit at, and she's correct, right? She's correct about the tables. She's correct about the games. And she's like, I won the bet, Keiichi. And Keiichi, in a small act of defiance, reignited the kind of the spark in Rika to, like, that motivational spark, right? Because he changed the game they were playing. He refused to play it, right? In the matter of 5 minutes, according to her, he changed his fate. He changed fate, right? And so she did the same thing, right? And she realized that if she's a more active participant, she can change her fate. Now, Hanyu seems to, like, I don't want to say is upset about this. I don't think she's upset. She's like, it's kind of like a, oh no, like, she's gonna hurt herself, isn't she? Right? She's gonna fight, and it's just going to hurt her. That's the vibe I got from her. I don't know, sympathetic maybe, right? Is the word I'm looking for. You get what I mean, surely. But she didn't seem pleased by this. She seemed sad, right? So it makes me think she's gone through this before. Maybe she's had this exact same experience. Maybe she has. I don't know. Which is interesting. But I mean, I'm excited. I want to see more of Hanyu's story. I'm really excited with what we've seen from Rika so far, but I'm really intrigued by Hanyu now. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Anyways, we go out from the store, and then we get the doll scene again, except this time, Rika kind of prods Keiichi and is like, hey, like, give it to Rena. Or not Rena, don't give it to Rena, rather, give it to Mion. Right? And he understands it from just a little tap on the back, and actually, I really want to quickly just go here. And what if we choose the other choice, does he still realize? If he doesn't, and it plays out differently, we'll worry about this another time, but I thought about telling Keiichi to give the doll to Mion, but I stayed quiet because I wanted to believe in him. When we were in the same situation in a previous life, Keiichi gave the doll to Rena. Mion was deeply hurt by that, and the tragedy began shortly after that. If I didn't do anything and just watched him now, things were going to end up the same way, but I'm sure that Keiichi deeply regretted the fact that he didn't give the doll to Mion in that previous world. While I was aware he didn't have any memories from that world, I was hoping that his heart vaguely remembered that strong emotion. I challenged him, without telling him anything. Keiichi's contemplating whether he should give the doll to Mion or Rena. He finally opens his mouth.
Mion, 俺が持って、ん？これ。
That's the exact same thing.
確率的なものかもしれないのですよ。
Yeah. I mean, the wording might be a little different. I don't remember if this was the exact wording we got before. Keiichi just made a miracle happen again. He did it without any memory of his previous life. It was exactly the same situation as in the previous world, but he made a totally different decision. Strong will is directly related to fate. If his will to give the doll to Rena was weak, this might have been a result of that, but I don't feel it was just a coincidence. I believe that Keiichi remembers something in his heart, because of that he made some progress. Me and having turned red, yeah.
だからさ、こういう可愛いちゃんとした可愛い女の子に渡した方が似合う。私みたいな男、
Mostly the
ケ
same.
イちゃんがこれもう
Mostly the
覚え
same.
てなよ。
I just wanted to see. It does give you the same end result, which I think is in and of itself very interesting. Right. In case there is some difference, we'll save there, I guess. It shouldn't be. I think that in and of itself is interesting and kind of shows why she's so hopeful. Why Rika's so hopeful, right? When she actively tries to make a change, the butterfly effect, right, can change a lot. Though that also might be why Hanyu's so worried. I think it's super interesting to see that, right? Also, that CG was just great. Mion's reaction was fantastic, right? I was glad that happened no matter what, right? But I mean, that was just a great scene. Kind of a great, probably final resolution to Chapter 2. I really enjoyed that. So beyond that, I want to talk a little bit about Rika and Hanyu as characters, and they are really interesting. Rika's always been a kind of interesting character, especially ever since Chapter 4. Chapter 4 on Through the Answer arc, she's been interesting because we've known there's this extra side to her, and we want to keep seeing more and more of it. And finally, we're seeing it, and we're realizing she's a very different person than she looks. We kind of got hints of this in Chapter 6 with her kind of giving up, right? Her basically like giving up on this world, and she's like, fine, if you don't want the syringe, okay, right? Like, I'll just meet the next Rena Ryugu and we'll try this again. Right? She gave up, right? She doesn't want to fight anymore, and we saw that from her a little bit. But really, in this chapter is when you see how worn down she is, how things are going for her mentally, right? And how she feels like she can't just give up, and if she gives up, she's going to fade away, right? And how she has to keep fighting, but it's so hard for her to keep fighting, and how she's running out of time because of Hanyu's power going away, right? And then you got to combine this with the facade that she has to keep up as the cheerful Rika, right? That everyone knows who's not really her, right? It's super interesting. Honestly, I don't think it's unfair to say she's shot up to already becoming one of my favorite characters. I've been kind of just waiting for this, right? I think I've mentioned this before, but Rika has always felt like a character who I'm like, she's right there. She's right there. Everything we see of her is so interesting, but we rarely see her, right? And now they've brought her back. We get to see her perspective. And there's a whole new side to it, right? That we've only seen hints of, right? And it's super interesting. She's definitely like a top 5 character. I don't know exactly how to rank my favorites. It's some, like, top 4 is probably Shion, Mion, Keiichi, Rika. Not necessarily in that order, right? Not necessarily in that order, but that's probably my top 4. And then after that, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know if I would have maybe included her in that group before. She's definitely there in the favorites now, which is it's super cool. I'm really glad we get to see this chapter from her perspective. But then also Hanyu is interesting, right? We don't get to see much of her, right? Because she didn't exist prior to now. Now she might have had small influences on the game in like prior to this. Like I think some of those sound effects or like sounds that only people with the craziness have heard might be them seeing Hanyu, right? Maybe Hanyu is the shadow they're feeling or the presence they're feeling, right? I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. And if Rika was kind of using Hanyu as a little spy, if that makes sense, or to communicate certain things, right? None of this would shock me. But just seeing Hanyu now, it's interesting. Because we can maybe tie those into something. But even if that's not what it is, it's super cool to see this other side, like Rika, this other personality within her that very well might just be the original Yashiro-sama, who had all this divine power and is able to rewind time and hasn't been able to do much with it. And while she has this kind of like cutesy attitude and appearance most of the time, you can see there's like kind of, I want to say like deep sadness within her, right? Like it seems, right? And that's super interesting, right? She's a brand new character and I'm already intrigued by her, right? I'm super excited to see where they go with her, right? I think she could be another really interesting character if they do something big with her, right? I mean, maybe she's just kind of a throwaway. I highly doubt she's just a throwaway though, right? Especially if she's literally Oyashiro-sama, right? She's going to have a backstory. She's going to be relevant, I'd bet. And I already am at the point where I'm like, I want a happy ending for Hanyu too. Hopefully, Hanyu and Rika's goals aren't at odds with each other. That would suck. That would suck. But we'll see. But I'm already really enjoying this chapter so far. I love the setup. Of like the setup of what it's giving us so far is really fascinating. And I'm super excited to see where this continues to go, because I assume we're just gonna possibly get more answers. See Rika try to continue to change fate. And I'm excited to see where exactly that goes. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I know, again, it's been a while. My bad. I don't think it's going to be a while again, at least for Chapter 7. I'm not going to make any promises going forward. Like, I think at this point we're well beyond promises of, guys, episodes soon. No one believes me. No one believes me. Right? And so it's easier to just upload them. You know? So, I'm hoping we'll get back to it soon. I'm not even going to try to give a target date. Hopefully really soon. But whenever that next episode does come out, I hope to see all of you guys there as we continue through Higurashi Chapter 7. And until then, peace.